I want to thank all of you for being here this afternoon. I want to particularly thank all of the parties that came together to enter into the Comprehensive Revenue Requirement Agreement. I know that it took a lot of work, a lot of collaboration, and a lot of balancing of competing interests to get to the point where that agreement has now been signed on by so many of the interveners that are represented in this hearing room today. So I want to thank all of you to put a lot of work into it to make sure there was a balancing of interest between protecting our ratepayers and at the same time making certain that DEC is in a position to competitively compete in ways that is favorable not just to ratepayers but to their shareholders as well. So I thank you all for working so diligently and getting the stipulation before us. One thing I would like to say is simply this. For those who have not joined into the Comprehensive Revenue Requirement Agreement that was first filed back on the afternoon of July 20th, I would simply say for each of those non-participating parties, to the extent you have objections to the comprehensive settlement, I would respectfully request that you make a filing in this docket no later than 1:30 p.m. tomorrow, which will be the Thursday, the 23rd of July. And in that particular document, I would ask, and you're not required to file it, but we leave it to your discretion. If you do choose to file it, please reference by numbered paragraph those paragraphs in the comprehensive settlement that you do not agree with, and likewise be able to state why you object and provide a succinct basis for why you feel it is not in the best interest of your respective clients. So, please get that to us so it is officially a part of the record. And I address that to those entities that have not participated in the comprehensive settlement. As it presently stands, my notes indicate that that would be the Office of the Attorney General, North Carolina Justice Center et al., Harris Teeter, the North Carolina Home Builders Association, Nucor Steel Lexington, and Amazon Data Centers. So I simply direct that to those attorneys that are in the room that represent those particular entities or interveners, as the case may be. With that stated, we're now in a position to proceed in bringing forth panels in support of the settlement that has been submitted at this time. And I will recognize well, let me first ask this. Are there any procedural matters that need to be addressed? I know this morning I did authorize several orders to go out excusing witnesses, and I assume that you have likely received those by this point in time. But if there are any procedural matters that we do need to address at this time, now would be an appropriate time to do so before we call forth the first panel.
Presiding Commissioner McKissick, Duke has one, DEC.
Yes.
So good afternoon. First and foremost, Presiding Commissioner McKissick, Chair Brawley, members of the commission, Kamal Robinson appearing on behalf of the company. I do have a couple of preliminary matters that I wanted to address. Presiding Commissioner McKissick, you did reference one, and that is on July 17, 2026, DEC did file the Comprehensive Revenue Requirements Agreement and Stipulation of Settlement, which was thrice amended on July 20th, 2026 to add additional signatories, and is now joined by DEC, the public staff, SIG4 Walmart, NCSCA, KUKA, Microsoft, and Dale in the Environmental Defense Fund. Also note that Google has separately advised the commission by letter dated July 21st, 2026, that it does not oppose the settlement. This settlement, together with the 5 other stipulations reached in this proceeding, resolves the vast majority of the issues in this docket among the parties to those stipulations. We want to thank all the parties for their willingness to engage after a full and thorough exploration of the issues in this case. Presiding Commissioner McKissick, you said it. Settlements like this one are hard to achieve. They reflect meaningful give and take, and the stipulating parties agree that it is in the public interest. With that, the company respectfully requests that the third amended Comprehensive Revenue Requirement Agreement and Stipulation of Settlement, filed on July 20th, 2026, be copied and entered into the record at this time. Thank you.
Without objection, your motion is allowed.
Thank you. And I have one other thing, procedural, Commissioner McKissick. As the commission acknowledged and has already seen in today's witness list, DC has discussed and all the parties have agreed to begin today with two of DC's settlement supporting witnesses, Ms. Kendall Bowman and Mr. Jacob Cawley. The parties have agreed to have the public staff settlement panel appear next, followed by the company's remaining settlement and rebuttal witnesses. Thank you. Nothing further from DC at this time.
Anything further, public staff or any other attorneys representing the interveners? Not seeing any, you may proceed, sir.
Thank you, sir. At this time, the company calls witnesses Kendall Bowman and Jacob Cawley to the stand.
If you could place your left hand on the Bible, raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear that testimony you're about to provide in this proceeding shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'll begin with Ms. Bowman. Ms. Bowman, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Witness Bowman, did you also provide direct testimony in this case?
Yes.
Okay. And Ms. Bowman, did you cause to be pre-filed in this docket on June 19th, 2026, rebuttal testimony consisting of 35 pages and no exhibits?
Yes.
Do you have any changes to your rebuttal testimony at this time?
No.
If I were to ask you the same questions that appear in your pre-filed rebuttal testimony, would the answers be the same?
Yes.
Your rebuttal testimony did not include any confidential information, right?
That's correct.
Did you also pre-file a summary of your rebuttal testimony for the commission on July 8th, 2026?
Yes.
Ms. Bowman, on July 20th, 2026, did you cause to be pre-filed settlement testimony consisting of 11 pages and no exhibits?
Yes.
Do you have any changes to your settlement testimony at this time?
Yes, I do have one change, and it's on page 3, footnote 1. I referenced 2 of the earlier stipulations the company reached in this proceeding. I'd like to expand that footnote to include the additional stipulations that the company previously reached with parties. Specifically, the October 24th, 2025 cost of service allocation stipulation by and between DEC, DEP, public staff, SIGFR 1, SIGFR 2, and CUCA. 2, the July 2nd, 2026 North Carolina Home Builders Association line extension settlement by and between DEC, the North Carolina Home Builders Association, and public staff. And 3, the July 9th, 2026 direct current and fast charging pilot settlement by and between DEC, Walmart, and the public staff. With this addition, the footnote will reference all 5 earlier stipulations, and the company supports all 6 stipulations in total reached in this case.
Thank you. And Ms. Bowman, if I were to ask you the same questions today that appear in your pre-filed settlement testimony, would the answers be the same?
Yes,
Your settlement testimony did not include any confidential information, correct?
that's correct.
And did you also pre-file a summary of your settlement testimony for the commission on July 21st, 2026?
Yes.
Thank you. I'll move to witness Cawley. Witness Cawley, good afternoon to you. Did you also provide direct testimony in this case?
Yes.
Mr. Cawley, did you cause to be pre-filed in this docket on June 19th, 2026, rebuttal testimony consisting of 14 pages and 2 exhibits?
Yes.
Do you have any changes to your rebuttal testimony at this time?
No.
If I were to ask you the same questions today that appear in your pre-filed rebuttal testimony, would the answers be the same?
Yes.
Your rebuttal testimony did not include any confidential information, correct?
That's correct.
And did you also pre-file a summary of your rebuttal testimony for the commission on July 8th, 2026?
Yes.
Mr. Cawley, did you cause to be pre-filed in this docket on July 20th, settlement testimony consisting of 5 pages and no exhibits?
Yes.
Do you have any changes to your settlement testimony at this time?
I do not.
If I were to ask you the same questions today that appear in your pre-filed settlement testimony, would the answers be the same?
Yes.
Your settlement testimony did not include any confidential information, right?
That's correct.
And did you also pre-file a summary of your settlement testimony for the commission on July 21st, 2026?
Yes.
Commissioner McKissick, I would ask at this time that witness Bowman's rebuttal and settlement testimony be entered into the record as if given orally from the stand, as well as the summaries of a rebuttal and settlement testimony.
Without objection, your motion is allowed. Let the record reflect that there has been a verbal reference made to the settlement testimony of Ms. Bowman on page 3 at footnote number 1 to make specific and explicit reference to the other stipulations that have been filed in this particular proceeding that were omitted from the original footnote. Without objection, your motion is allowed to that extent.
Thank you, Commissioner. I would also ask that witness Cawley's rebuttal and settlement testimony be entered into the record as if given orally from the stand, as well as the summaries of his rebuttal and settlement testimony.
Without objection, your motion is allowed.
And I would also ask that witness Cawley's 2 rebuttal exhibits be marked for identification and admitted into the record.
Without objection, your motion is allowed.
Thank you, Commissioner. Witnesses Bowman and Coley are now available for questions from the parties and commission on rebuttal and settlement testimony.
Okay, very good. I see where the Attorney General's office has reserved time, so you're recognized for cross-examination. Is your microphone not working? It is not working. Maybe you can swap out mics with someone else. I guess it only works for those who join the settlement. No, I'm only kidding. Let's clarify that for purposes of the record.
How about now?
It works now, yes.
Rita Coxton on behalf of the Attorney General's office. I have 1 or 2 questions for Mr. Coley and then 1 series of questions for Ms. Bowman. Mr. Coley, the settlement agreement provides for shareholder contributions to the Share the Light Fund and Helping Home Fund.
That's correct.
Is there of the $10 million, is it divided between the 2 funds, or is it a giant pot of money that either one they can be drawn off of depending on the customer's need?
It will be divided. The stipulation does not designate the exact split of the funding.
Can you tell us how it will be divided?
That is something we're still deliberating to determine how we can ensure that the most customers receive need, but also balance the needs of those 2 important programs. The Share the Light program is critical for bill assistance for customers that find themselves in a financial challenge or past due in their account. And the Helping Home Fund helps effectuate customers towards the weatherization programs to help them deliver long-term energy savings. So we're still deliberating on how exactly to split that up to make sure that the needs are met of both programs.
Okay, thank you very much. Now, Ms. Bowman, my question's for you. Are you familiar with the settlement testimony the public staff filed?
Yes.
So I would like to flesh out what appears to me to be a difference in testimony that you have provided about the large load tariff and testimony that the public staff has provided.
Excuse me 1 second. I'm not sure Mr. Coley's mic is working. Do we have it working now? Sure. What we're going to do, I apologize. We want to make sure all these mics are working, particularly the witnesses that are present. So we're going to take a 5-minute break for technical purposes, and we'll resume at approximately 1:50 p.m. Apologize for any inconvenience, but we want to make sure everything is appropriately on the record. You see that we're gonna reconvene. And if somebody could get the back door to the hearing room. I have been advised that the technical issues that we're experiencing have been resolved, so you may continue with your cross-examination.
Okay, Miss Bowman, I'll try to pick up sort of where I had left off before the recess. I was asking if you were familiar with the joint settlement testimony filed by the public staff, and then indicated that I wanted to flesh out what appears to be a difference in the testimony that you provide and the testimony that they provide about the large load tariff.
Yes.
Okay. So on page 4 of your testimony, lines 13 through 17, you describe would you tell us how you and what you mean by those sentences about what the parties have agreed to regarding a large load tariff?
The settling parties, and it's also referenced in the settlement agreement itself. I'm trying to make sure I've got the right version here. The one on July 20th, the amended comprehensive settlement, on page 9, there's the whole section on the large load tariff. In my testimony, I was just at a very high level describing what the parties had agreed to. Really, we're supporting a parallel proceeding along with this proceeding to get clarity on new practices and policies that are needed to serve new large load in the state of North Carolina, and a parallel proceeding along with this rate case and the timing of that.
Okay, I appreciate that. The way the public staff describes it is slightly different. And so on page 18, lines 7 through 8, they say an agreement to develop a large load
Hold on,
tariff.
can you give me a
Sure. I'm
moment to
sorry.
get there? Are you on
I'm
page
Page 18,
18?
lines 7 through 8.
An agreement to develop a large load tariff to go into effect January 1st, 2027.
Yes, ma'am. Can you bridge the gap between those two pieces of testimony?
So from my perspective, and you certainly can ask the public staff witnesses this question, from my perspective, it expands upon what my testimony said, that we proposed a separate but parallel proceeding because we've asked for new rates to take effect in this case on January 1st, 2027. And for the large load issues, we would like for that to be addressed in the same timeline as well.
So is there an agreement for a parallel process to explore those issues? Or is it an agreement to actually develop a tariff to go into effect when rates go into effect for MYRP2? And I'm not trying to be difficult. I'm trying to understand if it's a process y'all have agreed to, or a process that absolutely culminates in a tariff.
So I am referencing back to the settlement itself.
With opposing counsel for Duke Energy, just one clarifying question with regard to the footnote clarification that was made at the start.
Yes, okay.
Thank you. Ms. Bowman, you referenced the cost of service stipulation entered into this past October in this rate case. And I just want to be clear for the record, I believe you said SIGFOR 1 and 2 were parties to that stipulation. Did you mean SIGFOR 2 and 3?
Yes, I apologize. SIGFOR 2 and 3.
Thank you. I just wanted to clarify for the record.
Absolutely. And Thank you for that clarification. Okay, so North Carolina Justice Center et al. You're ready to proceed with your cross-examination. Please do so.
Good afternoon, Menashe Magruder on behalf of NCJC et al. My questions, unless otherwise specified, are for the panel. So either of you feel free to respond to the line of questioning. So I want to start off, Witness Bowman, on page 10, lines 8 through 9 of your rebuttal testimony. I'll wait until you get there.
Did you say rebuttal, not settlement?
Your rebuttal, yeah. Page 10, lines 8 through 9.
Yes,
So there you note that the company has never made a rate reduction of this magnitude on its own initiative in its rebuttal case.
that is correct.
Standing here today and the comprehensive settlement sort of ratifies this, the company is seeking PBR rate making treatment, correct?
Yes, we are.
And you know, I think this is probably on the same page, that PBR is needed because the company needs to make reliability investments. Is that fair?
Yes, we have a lot of investments that we need to make going forward, and we believe that the PBR framework provides benefits to the company and the customers.
Have you had a chance to review the testimony from Public Staff Policy Panel? This is witnesses Metz and Thomas.
At a high level.
Okay. So I think these questions will hopefully be at a high level, but notwithstanding obviously the company's objections to how the public staff has characterized these non-MYRP projects, you would agree that DEC has placed a significant amount of non-MYRP projects to plant during MYRP1, MYRP1 being sort of our first go around with MYRP.
I'm not sure what you're referencing. We are allowed under the statute to, in the first year, it's based on a historic. We are allowed to put in projects that have already gone into service that are needed to serve our customers. So there are projects in this case that were outside of multi-year rate plan, and that is definitely allowed under the framework.
Yeah, understood. I'm just level setting there, and it seems like we're on the same page. The company has put non-MYRP projects into service during MYRP1.
Yes.
Okay. Would it surprise you that the public staff determined that the company placed about $3.7 billion in non-MYRP projects to plant during MYRP1?
Yes, as I have said before in previous testimony, we are making a tremendous amount of investments on the system. We connected DEC alone in a 24-month period, over 87,000 new customers. And I believe that's referenced in witness Guyton's rebuttal testimony as well. So we need to continually make investments in the system to ensure reliable service for our customers.
Would it surprise you that that 3.7 billion in non-MYRP spend was more than 50% of what the commission approved in MYRP1?
I'm not going to do the math in my head here.
And I have the testimony if it's helpful from the public staff to refresh your memory. I mean, this is just me going off of what was testified to.
Could you please point me to that page?
Yeah. I'm assuming you have that testimony in front of you, the public staff policy panel.
I think it's in here.
Okay.
Settlement testimony.
Are we referencing settlement testimony?
No,
or
this is
their other
the
testimony?
this is the direct testimony that those two witnesses filed. And just give me 1 sec. I can give you the exact page site. Sorry, bear with me. My internet is. So if we're going off of the, and this would be, I believe, the initial non-corrected testimony. Well, maybe in the interest of moving along, would you agree, subject to check, that represents more than 50% of what was approved in MYRP 1?
Subject to check.
Okay. All right. Would you agree that DEC plans to place a significant amount of non-MYRP projects to plant in 2027 and 2028?
Subject to check. And I would just like to reiterate that, again, the multi-year rate plan is only addressing a subset of projects that come in a defined amount as pursuant to the statute. We still, as a company, have to make lots of investments to reliably serve our customers. So whether it comes in the form of an MYRP or in a base year, we're going to need to continue to make investments.
And again, in the interest of moving things along, subject to check, would you agree that DEC plans to place into service about an additional 4.2 billion in non-MYRP projects in 2027 and 2028?
Subject to check.
Okay. Witness Bowman, and this is staying on your rebuttal testimony. You note on pages 13 through 15 of your rebuttal testimony, just at a high level, the company's commitment to service and affordability. And I'll wait until you get there.
Okay, I'm here, 13 and 14.
And I think on page 13, beginning on line 11, you note the company's response to customers' affordability concerns, Mr. Colley, and this is your testimony, I believe.
Yes.
Okay. So to summarize at a high level, would it be fair to say that the two of you testified to the following efforts to address customer affordability? And I'll just take them one at a time. Energy efficiency and demand side management programs.
Yes, that's listed as one of the items.
Bill management options.
I believe these are all laid out in the testimony. If you look at the bottom of page 14 and the top of 15, it's all laid right out there in my testimony.
All right. Fair enough. So let's go to your settlement testimony, Ms. Bowman. This is page 7, line 10.
Okay.
All right. So you discussed a $10 million shareholder contribution to Share the Light Fund and Helping Home Fund under the comprehensive settlement. Do you see that?
Yes, I do.
And do you recall testimony from the direct phase of the company's case where there was testimony, I think, from witness Colley that about 33 million has been provided under cap? Subject to check.
I believe you're referencing the CAP program, which is separate and apart from shareholder dollars.
Understood, but does that number sound right? That 33 million under cap?
In bill credits, it's a little less than that, but that's the total implementation cost that we discussed on direct.
Would you agree that as a general matter, the level of philanthropic support represented in dollars can fluctuate over time?
Can you repeat that?
Would you agree that as a general matter, the level of philanthropic support that's offered to residential customers can fluctuate over time?
So I believe that's an extremely broad question. If you're talking about it from a Duke Energy perspective, the commitment we have made here is a shareholder contribution. At Duke Energy, we also have a Duke Energy Foundation, which also provides help and funding to various programs. And those numbers can fluctuate. But in the context of this comprehensive settlement, this is a 10 million guarantee, and we will be making a filing each in April to show the disbursement of those funds and to indicate the number of customers that we have helped with those funds.
And maybe just to put a fine point on it, there's no guarantee that DEC customers will be able to receive an additional $10 million in assistance if and when the amounts that are promised under the comprehensive settlement run out.
I disagree with that broad sweeping statement. The Share the Light program that the company has been in existence for many years and will continue to be in existence. It is supported not only by the shareholders, the foundation, the employees, additional customers out there. It is a very beneficial program that helps those customers in crisis. And Witness Colley can go into a lot more detail in terms of how that Share the Light program works.
One thing I'll add is, consistently the program has existed for years and has been funded by the company for many years to support customers.
Understood, but I mean, just as at a high level, what the settlement is committing is just $10 million in shareholder contributions.
I would say this settlement is committing a lot more than $10 million. You have to look at the comprehensive nature of this settlement. There were a lot of gives and takes. There was a significant ROE reduction from the initial ask and even from the rebuttal asks. There have been agreements on bad debt, a $17 million write-off. There's lots of additional protections if you look at the multi-year rate plan refund. So if you look at the totality of this comprehensive settlement, it is very meaningful to all of our customers.
All right, let's discuss bill management options. And this is your rebuttal testimony. This is still staying on page 13. I think lines.
Give me a moment. We're back to the rebuttal.
Yeah.
And page 13.
Yeah, lines 21 through 22, and then going through page 14, lines 1 through 2. You discuss at a high level bill management options, and that includes payment plans, flexible due dates, and bill programs. Do you generally see that language testimony?
Yeah. I can probably help with the specifics if you have any questions beyond what's stated in testimony.
I do, and I'm just going to drill down sort of on the actual question I have. I don't see any mention here of disconnection relief. Is that fair?
The specifics in our testimony do not mention disconnection relief, but our programs support customers through times when they find difficulties, and disconnections are absolutely the last resort we have in the long timeline that we provide with our customers. Multiple communications, ample opportunities to take advantage of our flexible payment arrangements, our extension of our due dates, as well as the find time to connect with assistance agencies, which we also do direct outreach to customers in need to help them connect with those dollars to make disconnection the absolute last resort for our customers when bills go unpaid.
I would also add that there is a policy here with the company that when there are extreme weather events, such as extreme cold temperatures, or when you have a high heat day with a heat index over 100 or 105, the company waives disconnections so that customers are not suffering in those extreme weather conditions. So we do encompass that in the whole affordability ecosystem for our customers.
Recognizing that the company has internal policies that prohibit disconnections during hot months, you would agree that there's no rule, commission rule at least, that would bar disconnections during hot months. Would you agree?
We have had that as a long-standing practice that has been acknowledged and recognized throughout time with their customers, with the public staff, that when it's extreme heat or extreme cold, we do not turn off customers because we understand the impacts that could have, and that is our long-standing practice.
Would DEC consider filing a petition to, I guess, get a new rule that would codify permanently that there would be no disconnections during hot months?
So if the commission wants to issue a rulemaking process, we would certainly participate in it here to the rules that the commission would set forth. What I was describing wasn't for all of the winter months and all of the hot months. It was when you had those extreme days.
And I understand. I think my question is sort of drilling on the fact that, again, there is a policy that's in place for the companies, but having a rule might provide some additional protection and also just permanency to that policy. Obviously, drill down on that.
There,
Sorry, go ahead.
no, go ahead.
Last couple questions, on energy efficiency, demand side management assistance. DEC currently operates an income qualified high energy use program.
I believe that's true.
Right, and that program is currently limited to, subject to check, Guilford County, Forsyth County, and Mecklenburg County.
I don't have the specifics on the high energy use pilot in front of me. I can certainly reference it if you have any materials to validate that. I have general awareness of the high energy use pilot and that it is limited to certain counties, but and it is a pilot in nature.
And obviously pilot at this time, but would the company consider extending this program given the value that's delivered to the system?
We're always open to looking. The purpose of a pilot is to gain information and do reflection on that. So at the end of that pilot program, we'll be doing a report, and we're always open to considering if it provided benefits, and if it did, then definitely open to extension.
No further questions.
Thank you, Presiding Commissioner McKissick. Peter Ledford on behalf of the North Carolina Home Builders Association. In light of the clarifications that Ms. Bowman made when she was introduced, we have no cross.
Yes, thank you, Presiding Commissioner McKissick. I just really have one clarifying question. Ms. Bowman, do you recall questions from the Attorney General's office regarding the large load provision summary in your settlement testimony?
Yes, I do.
And Ms. Bowman, notwithstanding the summary in your testimony, do you, or does from your perspective, does Duke Energy support the terms within the settlement as written?
Yes, we do.
Thank you. No further questions.
Do have a few questions from commission staff and perhaps some from other commissioners. First being, what is the average monthly bill increase to residential customers for rate year 1 and rate year 2 under the comprehensive stipulation?
Give me a moment. You have that? Okay.
So for the residential class, rate year 1 is approximately 5.9%. And then rate year 2 is approximately 3.6%.
3.6%. Those are the numbers which I had here. Now, in terms of what that would work out to for a typical customer, of 1,000 kilowatt hours a month, could you provide us with that information in a late file exhibit? Yes,
We have that.
you do have it. Okay.
So for residential, the first year would be roughly $6.53.
$6.53 first year. Yes.
First year, rate year 2 would equal $4.66.
$4.66.
And witness Bateman can correct if I am wrong.
And what I'm seeing is that the cumulative increase over 2 years would be 9.5%. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay. And there is discussion about perhaps continuing this beyond the 2 rate years and including a 3rd year if we address issues dealing with deferral at a point in time, dealing with the Person County CC1 and the Marshall units. Is that right?
That is correct. There is a provision in the comprehensive settlement that says the companies are looking at a potential stay out. But in order to do that, we would need to get the deferral of the Marshall CTs and the Person CC1.
And based upon your understanding at this time, are those still basically unresolved issues that we would need to take up as a commission?
So for the stay out,
Yes.
if the companies want to do that, we would file in a separate proceeding for those deferral requests. So it is not an outstanding matter in this current proceeding.
Thank you for that clarification. I think we were all assuming that would be the way it would function and operate. And as I understand it, the public staff has reserved judgment on that issue, that they are open issues that as to whether they would support that or whether they would contest that.
That is correct. All the settling parties would reserve their right to analyze that when we file.
All right. Now, Ms. Bowman, the settlement mentions that the parties are pursuing settlement discussions within the DEP rate case proceeding to reach a similar settlement framework. To the extent that you're able to share, does that include an additional $10 million for the, as in terms of shareholder contribution for the Share the Light Fund as well as the Helping Home Fund?
That is correct. It would be an additional 10 million for DEP.
All right. Now, Ms. Bowen and Mr. Coley, in the stipulation, item number 28 speaks about the $10 million contribution, one component of which is to increase access to low-income weatherization. And this question is intended to help the commission better understand how these efforts fit together. Is Duke coordinating with the State Energy Office on its weatherization initiative to help avoid duplication of existing federal and state-funded weatherization programs? And if so, can you explain how that coordination might occur?
So I will start with a high level, and the answer is yes. We are coordinating with the State Energy Office on weatherization, and I'll let witness colleague go into more details.
So we have ongoing discussions with our with not only the state but the local administrating offices that deliver weatherization to communities and our customers. And the Helping Home Fund, which is for the health and safety repairs, helps get customers to the weatherization process. The state has limited funding or a cap on in many ways on how much they could spend on a home repair. So, electrical issues, roofing issues, broken windows, to get to the weatherization process. And so the Helping Home Fund helps get customers to the weatherization process, whether that's through the company's energy efficiency portfolio weatherization or through the state. And this shareholder contribution here in this comprehensive settlement, as well as the contributions that have been made previously, help get customers through those repairs to the long-term energy savings that weatherization can provide.
Okay. Now, Mr. Coley, commission staff has several questions concerning paragraph 28 on page 5. So I'll give you a moment to get there.
I'm at paragraph 28.
All right. And to better understand the incremental benefit of the $10 million shareholder contribution, when will the $10 million total shareholder contribution be dispersed? I mean, is that going to be in a lump sum? If it's going to be over a 2-year period? I mean, graduated payments, how is it envisioned that that will occur at this time?
The stipulation does not dictate that. So what we are deliberating internally is to determine how much need will exist starting in 2027 to help support customers with rate year 1 and beyond. In previous settlements I could speak to, we have allocated that through the multi-year period, is what happened in the previous case. But if there's more need from customers, our agencies are able to show us that there's a funding deficiency, then we would be able to work with them, as we do each and every day, to understand where there is incremental need and determine if additional distributions would need to happen at another point in the year or more quickly. But right now, the flexibility within the settlement would allow us to evaluate that on an ongoing basis.
And Presiding Commissioner McKissick, I will just add, in the past, we really do need to work with the agencies that are receiving these funds. Oftentimes, they are not set up to handle a huge, if we were to just drop in 5 million here, 5 million there, they can't disperse the funds efficiently. So managing those distributions will be part of this process.
Part of the process. And just for purposes of the record, if you were to go back over the last year or two, how much has Duke Energy contributed? And when I say Duke Energy, let me be more specific. DEC might have contributed toward those same specific programs.
So in the last really 3.5 years has been just over $7 million.
And that's $7 million over a 3-year period. Is
So
that
about
correct?
$2 million per year for 23, 24, and 25. And then this year has been a little less than $1 million.
A little less than $1 million.
And,
Okay.
and on average, customers receive between $350 and $400 in support through the Share the Lot pledges. So we've helped, nearly 18,000 customers through the Share the Lot program itself.
And is it your anticipation that a similar level of assistance or aid would be provided to this targeted population of customers?
Yeah, so the settlement, the comprehensive settlement contributions, in addition to the other contributions that the company makes annually, we would exceed the $2 million certainly in 2027 to provide additional aid to customers that are in need support if they find themselves in a challenging situation.
So to clarify your last comments, when you said additionally, is it anticipated that DEC and DEP above and beyond the 10 million that each might contribute, there be other funds that would also go into that pot of money that would come from other sources, perhaps even contributions through ratepayers? Is that the way that works typically? But maybe you can provide clarity.
Yes, so the Share the Light Fund employees contribute to the Share the Light Fund. So I contribute, part of my paycheck is earmarked to go to the Share the Light Fund. So employees do that. Customers, if you go on the Duke Energy website and you're a DEC customer, there is a provision in there for customers to also help to fund to Share the Light. We've also had other donations across the state. And we do a program every year with UNC and NC State football. If they score X amount of touchdowns and points in a year, the company contributes, again, shareholder and foundation funding to the Share the Light program. And there are other avenues for also charitable donations to the Share the Light Fund as well.
So is it reasonably anticipated that this $10 million, we don't know how many years it's going over, but it would be separate and apart from those other historical contributions that have been made?
Yes, this is an additional $10 million, and it will be another 10 million for the DEP customers, should we reach a comprehensive settlement there.
Okay. And I think you indicated what the average residential impact would be to those that benefit, but could you restate that number?
Yes. So let me do some quick math, but around 17 to 18,000 customers have been supported over the last 3.5 years. It's about $350 to $400 on average that customers receive in terms of a pledge from the Share the Lot program.
Very good. And if you could, just provide us with a late filed exhibit that kind of summarizes the pertinent details of what your testimony has just been related to the questions which I've asked related to the Share the Light program and the Helping Home for program. So we will have that succinctly provided.
Absolutely.
All right. And on that note, let me look to my fellow commissioners to see if there are other questions. Chair Brawley, Commissioner Tucker, Commissioner Gaida. Thank you. Well, we got to go back to questions on commissioner questions. Yes, sir. Go right ahead.
I just have a couple clarifying questions, and it's actually about that last line of questioning from presiding Commissioner McKissick. I think on sort of the annual dollar value of support that Share the Light recipients receive. Do you remember that line of questioning?
Yes.
So I just want to make sure I have the numbers right. Were you saying on an annual basis, I guess during MYRP 1, eligible customers were receiving about $350 of Share the Light support on average on an annual basis?
That number is for this year.
For this year.
But that is typical. 300 to 400 is a typical pledge amount for customers that find themselves in need.
Right. So, and so I heard the word typical pledge. So like, just to drill down on this a little bit, what I hear you saying is that on an annual year-to-year basis, one would anticipate that if you were eligible to receive Share the Light Fund, you would receive about that amount, like that $350 amount.
On average, that is correct.
Okay, and do you have just sitting here, do you have like a ballpark sense of like how many DEC customers are receiving Share the Light funds?
It's as just discussed with Commissioner McKissick, it's around 5,000 to 6,000 customers per year based on the $350 average.
Okay, so last question, just subject to check. Would you agree, so on a monthly basis, that $350 pledge would be about $29 a month?
Sure. Yes, that's subject to check.
No further questions.
Any further questions on commissioner questions? Go ahead.
No questions on commissioner questions from the company. Thank you.
All right. Where you're released at this time. Thank you.
Thank you.
And of course, I think I did state that there will be a late file exhibit provided. Okay,
Yes, presiding commissioner, we have that captured. Thank you.
excellent. Thank you. Just want to make sure. I believe the public staff is calling a panel.
The public staff now calls Dustin Metz, Fen Zhang, Jeff Thomas, and Patrick Fahey, appearing as the settlement testimony panel, to the stand.
All right. If you could put your left hand on the Bible and raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear the testimony you're about to provide in this proceeding will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Yes.
Thank you.
Mr. Metz, would you please state your name, business address, and current position for the record?
My name is Dustin Metz. My business address is 430 North Salisbury Street, Raleigh, North Carolina. I'm the director of the Public Staff's Energy Division.
Ms. Zong, would you please state your name, business address, and current position for the record?
My name is Fen Zhang. My business address is 430 North Salisbury Street, Raleigh, North Carolina. My current position is the Public Utility Regulatory Analyst Manager of the Energy Division for the public staff.
Thank you. Mr. Thomas, would you please state your name, business address, and current position for the record?
Yes, my name is Jeff Thomas. My business address is 430 North Salisbury in Raleigh, and I'm the manager of the operations section of the Energy Division of the Public Staff.
And Mr. Fahey, would you please state your name, business address, and current position for the record?
My name is Patrick Fahey. My address is 430 North Salisbury Street, Raleigh, North Carolina, and I'm a Public Utilities Regulatory Analyst within the Energy Division of the Public Staff.
Mr. Metz, Ms. Zong, Mr. Thomas, and Mr. Fahey, on July 20, 2026, did you prepare and cause to be pre-filed direct joint settlement testimony in this docket consisting of 19 pages?
Yes.
Yes.
Did this testimony contain confidential information?
No.
Do you have any corrections to your pre-filed direct joint settlement testimony?
Yes.
Okay, please go ahead.
On page 18, lines 7 to 8. Subpart D should be stricken and replaced with an agreement that the parties will not object to a parallel proceeding in which the parties can engage on a large load tariff as long as issues can be resolved prior to January 1st, 2027.
Thank you. Other than that correction, if I were to ask you the same questions today, would your answers be the same?
Yes.
And did you prepare and cause to be pre-filed on July 22, 2026, a summary of your joint settlement testimony in docket number E-7 sub 1329A?
Yes.
Presiding Commissioner McKissick, at this time, I move that the pre-filed joint settlement testimony of Mr. Metz, Ms. Zong, Mr. Thomas, and Mr. Fahey, consisting of 19 pages, as well as the pre-filed summary of joint settlement testimony, be entered into the record as if given orally from the stand.
Without objection, your motion is allowed, explicitly updating the testimony that Mr. Thomas identified as being corrected from the original testimony, I believe on page 18.
Thank you. The panel is available for cross-examination and commission questions.
Okay, I believe the first in the queue is Attorney General's office.
Yes. Rita Coxton on behalf of the Attorney General's office. I have just one question for y'all. Would you mind explaining a little more about the correction you just went through with Ms. Lohr?
Sure, I can start, and if anyone else would like to chime in, please do. So I think the stipulation reflects, I think, the parties' commitment to expeditiously resolve these differences and develop a large load tariff. And that's why the stipulation language reflects working out the issues by the time rates take effect in this proceeding, and the illustrative timeline proposed in the stipulation is a very compressed timeline for having parties meet for 2 weeks and provide comments and reply comments at a very rapid clip to allow the commission time to potentially incorporate that information into its decision, whether in this docket or a parallel docket. I think overall, the public staff, invites the commission to kind of provide some guidance as to whether it wants to resolve the large load tariff in this proceeding or in a separate docket. But I think what the stipulation outlines that illustrative timeline for a stakeholder conference, which is very quick, but we feel generally that it's important that the large load tariff take effect as soon as practicable. I think our original testimony recommended having it take effect January 1st, 2027. And I think the public staff still believes that to be in the best interest of ratepayers for North Carolina.
Agree with Mr. Thomas. The overarching intent from public staff's view, it goes into effect January 1st, 2027.
Okay, Mr. Thomas, your description gave me another question. Can you elaborate on how the public staff and DEC envision that stakeholder process starting? Typically in rate cases, I think the stipulations and settlements are filed. We do proposed orders, and then a commission order comes out, in most cases approving the settlement agreement and stipulation. How do you envision this part of that working if the process would need to be completed before the final order approving the stipulation was issued?
Great question. I'll take an initial crack. So I think one important factor is we've already made progress, right? A lot of times in a stakeholder process, you have to develop some sort of straw man proposal, and then parties can weigh in on that proposal and develop alternatives and changes. We've already been through that process fairly detailed in this room over the past several weeks. The public staff proposed our proposal. Duke took that proposal and modified it in their rebuttal, and we all have listened to several hours of questions about both proposals really over the last couple of weeks. So we're already fairly far along that process. We have some concrete proposals put forth in good faith by ourselves, the public staff, and Duke to review. And so I would hope that the stakeholder process that we're laying out would result in comments that are substantive, provide red line edits and concrete proposals of their own to aid the commission in its decision making. The commission can obviously do anything it wants in respect to whether it decides to pursue this stakeholder proceeding at all, or to have it run in parallel in another docket within this docket. The commission has lots of leeway in issuing advance like notice of decision or other types of rulings on motions that these parties on the stipulation have agreed to not oppose. So I think it would certainly present a challenge to have a complete and final proposal approved by the commission by January 1st, 2027. But I don't think that the process for the stakeholder discussions needs to wait until the commission issues its final order in this proceeding. And I think that it is likely that we will attempt, or I hope that we will make some progress on this process prior to a final decision in this order, as these parties have all agreed to engage in these efforts in good faith on a quite expedited timeline. So anything to add?
Last question. Will parties who are not stipulating parties have an opportunity to participate in the stakeholder process that you have described?
I see no reason why this would be only limited to parties in the stipulation.
Thank you. No further questions.
Thank you. It looks like North Carolina Justice Center et al.
Minash Magar on behalf of NCJC et al. I think I just have two questions, but potentially more depending on what responses y'all give. Public staff has proposed a MYRP refund rider. Has the public staff conducted any analysis that would show how much would have been refunded in MYRP 1 if the refunder rider had been in place then?
So I believe Mr. Thomas and I have had these conversations. So I believe at a very high level, Mr. Thomas, correct me if I'm wrong, our calculations came up to about $80 million a year in a revenue requirement that would have been refunded in each respective MYRP. Initial analysis would have refunded it approximately a little bit more than $40 million to ratepayers under this proposed rider mechanism. Mr. Thomas?
Yeah, and I think that's a very high level ballpark figure. The way that we've kind of sketched this out is that, it depends on not only projects that, that 83 million revenue requirement that Mr. Metz just spoke of, that is projects that were incomplete by the end of rate year 2. But this mechanism also takes into account projects that might be in service but late, that might be in service but early. And so it gets pretty complicated, but we already have the framework for calculating a MYRP revenue requirement in witness Abernathy's work papers. And so once we finalize that and have a final compliance filing detailing projects in MYRP 1 and 2, that will be kind of the base revenue requirement. And then part of this rider will be essentially updating that project level description with the actual date it was completed and the actual cost, and then recalculating that revenue requirement and comparing those. So it will be a little bit complicated, but we do have that framework. And I think Mr. Metz's estimate is ballpark accurate, but would depend on a lot of other factors outside of just the projects that weren't completed. The timing of completion matters as well.
So I just want to make sure I have the dollar amount right. Was it 80 million for the entire MYRP 1 period, or 80 million per rate year?
That 83 million was that Mr. Metz referenced. That was the revenue requirement associated with MYRP 1, rate year 1, and rate year 2 projects that were not completed by the end of rate year 2. So that revenue requirement at least would be part of the calculation as a credit to be issued to customers, but only a fraction of that would be issued, right? Because that's also going to be multiplied by some of the completion rate factors, the composite rate. So I think Mr. Metz estimated just those projects that were incompleted was around 40 million. But again, that's a ballpark figure that would be credited for a single rate year. And it's hard to sit here from the stand and kind of estimate what it would be for each rate year because of the complexities of project timing, actual costs versus approved costs. So I don't know that we have sat down and done that analysis for MYRP 1, rate years 1 and 2, outside of just looking at the completion rates and recognizing that there would be some sort of credit. But as I sit here today, I cannot tell you what that credit would be in each rate year of MYRP 1 had this rider been in effect for rate year MYRP 1.
Got it. That's super helpful. And last question, and it's kind of a formulation on what I asked you initially. Has the public staff done an analysis of how much funds would be given back to customers in MYRP 2 if the same, let's call it delay rate that was experienced in MYRP 1 was experienced in MYRP 2?
No, I have not done that analysis.
No further questions.
Thank you. I'm not seeing any other interveners in the queue, so we go back to public staff for redirect.
No redirect.
All right. Well, we do have a few questions from commission staff, and there could well be some questions from my fellow commissioners. On page 11, page 22 of the settlement, I'll give you a few minutes to get there.
See page 11 of our testimony
Of
Or the settlement.
the settlement,
of the settlement.
settlement, yes.
All right.
Page 11 of the settlement.
Which number?
Paragraph 22. All right, and in paragraph 22, it states only sales of the EV tariff should be included in the calculation to exclude sales from the RDM or residential decoupling mechanism and earnings sharing mechanism. Please clarify, are you referencing DEC's Schedule RT EV as proposed in the public staff's rate panel testimony? So do you need to reference back to DEC Schedule RTEV?
It is my understanding is that it is the residential tariff that is listed there. I
That is-
don't remember it's the RT specifically, but is the Duke Energy's EV tariff.
Duke Energy's EV tariff.
Yeah, Duke Energy Carolinas in this case. Yes.
Exactly. Thank you. And can you provide more detailed on resolved issues, paragraph number 5 of the comprehensive stipulation? And I'll give you a minute to get there. And of course, it states to the stipulating parties that essentially DEC will establish a process to update the capital additions for customer interconnection facilities and the associated revenue for such customers through the same period. Can you provide more details on the scope and timeline for this process?
Sure, I can start and Mr. Fahey or Mr. Metz or Ms. Bennett may have more to add, but during this case, we had, through the update period and the capital cutoff, we had updates around interconnection facilities that were completed for large load customers, whether or not those customers were actually taking service or if just the interconnection facilities had been completed, whether extra facilities charge revenue from their contracts, their electric service agreements was to be included as revenue in the proceeding, whether I believe this may also apply to electric sales revenue, expected electric sales revenue, whether that's included as well in some sort of customer growth adjustment. And so all of these different mechanisms were they were updated. Sometimes in the second supplemental, Duke would update it, included some additional EFC revenue. We made some recommendations about removing that and removing the in-service facilities. And so my understanding of this stipulation is that we'll work together to just kind of make sure we have a consistent process across all about when do we include the infrastructure upgrades in rate base and making sure that if we are going to decide to include those, that the appropriate revenue is recognized, offsetting revenue, sales, EFCs, and that the customer is actually intending to take service or taking service. So it's really around that dynamic and all those different pieces in that puzzle.
I characterize it more as a house cleaning item. We found at the very back end there was a little bit of misalignment, and we just want a repeatable process going forward.
Thank you for that clarity. Now, Mr. Metz, can you provide us with any kind of update on the status of a potential settlement in the DEP case?
There are discrete items, I'm trying to find the page, that were agreed to with purposes of this settlement. But at a very high level, ongoing discussions are still occurring within the Duke Energy Progress case.
Is it the expectation that the settlement in that case might mirror those provisions that are in this particular proceeding when it comes to the most significant issues?
It is a strong possibility, yes, but we have to have further conversations with the parties on those matters.
Sure. Now, the next several questions relate to settlement item number 17, the NYRP refund mechanism. Give you a minute to get there.
There.
Okay, has the public staff identified any other jurisdiction or utility that employs a substantially similar refund mechanism? Or is this a unique approach being developed specifically for this particular case in this proceeding?
I did not identify any other jurisdictions that had a similar approach. It doesn't mean that those approaches don't exist, but as far as I know, this mechanism and the details behind it kind of was novel in the way that it was developed here between Duke and our input and a lot of back and forth.
All right. Now, Mr. Thomas and Mr. Metz, the public staff spent a considerable amount of time speaking about the Chattel non-NYRP spending earlier in this hearing, and Mr. Thomas provided additional clarification on how he viewed that spending. DEC has noted that immediate or emergency issues may arise that cause the company to allocate resources toward non-NYRP projects. How does this concern raised by the public staff interact with the stipulated NYRP refund mechanism?
So the overall agreement on the MYRP refund mechanism, there's no substitutions of projects. It's based upon the projects that were included, which were ultimately fully resolved, and the associated revenue requirement. So to the extent that emergent issues arise, the utility would handle those, in my view, as the course of typical business.
But there would be no substitution of projects.
There is no substitution of projects within this rider.
Thank you. I think that clarifies it for purposes of the record. When discussing the NYRP rider idea in the stand, public witness Thomas noted one consideration was the relative valuation of projects. Are all completed and incomplete projects valued equally, or are larger projects valued more than smaller projects? In the proposed NYRP rider, it appears that larger projects have a greater weight of the refund amount than smaller projects. Is the public staff concerned that an unintended consequence of this would be that DEC is thus discouraged from completing smaller projects on time?
Great question, and I'll start, but on Exhibit 1, page 2 of the Comprehensive Revenue Requirement Agreement, we outline in detail some of the methodology, and the composite rate that we create is essentially the ratio of the number of projects completed, which is essentially the project completion ratio, and that is based on project by project. So every project has its own weight. And then that's coupled with the revenue requirement ratio, and that looks at the relative revenue requirement of each project individually. Well, it's not each individual revenue requirement, but it's the whole bucket of projects. And in that ratio, a larger project would have more impact than a smaller project. Those two rates are blended. So you're not equally weighting each project. You're not only weighting by relative dollars. It's a composite. So we felt that that was a compromise between the two individual metrics, each of which may bias the utility towards or away from small projects. And so that composite ratio, which is developed by combining both the project completion ratio, which is an individual basis, and the revenue requirement ratio, that is the ultimate multiplier that's used for the difference in the revenue requirement.
Thank you.
And I think another takeaway is in constructing this, noting as a function of give and take, is that I don't think it's reasonable to expect that the company is going to hit 100% of the projects that are proposed to MRP. Again, our initial concern was the magnitude of how it was. I mean, over $1 billion. If we would have got within 99.9% completion, we may have had a different discussion. But it was just, this is addresses are trying to balance. We understand the magnitude and the complexity of operating such a program over the utility system, while also understanding the impacts and how things can change in the field. We believe this composite ratio for purposes of this case is a reasonable step, and it's a step in a positive direction from the public staff's view. When we move forward to the next case, again, not within the settlement, we will evaluate MRP2. We will present our findings to the commission, and we will present the conclusion of how we believe that perhaps this rider could go back into effect, or whether a modification to this rider would need to happen. But that is a future MRP discussion, respectfully.
I appreciate you sharing that perspective. It seems like that would be a reasonable approach to take to, and I appreciate the staff working with the stipulating parties to come up with a novel approach to address what was a very serious and concerning issue to this commission. Could you please describe how the public staff will audit the information provided in the annual proceedings related to this proposed rider?
I'll start, and Mr. Thomas can jump in. So I believe the intent at a very high level is when the company files it, they'll submit the number of projects. As Mr. Thomas, let me back here a second. As Mr. Thomas pointed out before, Duke Witness Abernathy has a very complex Excel spreadsheet that tracks every individual project. You have the in-service date, you have its location, you have its cost, you have its O&M, you have its contingency, it's line item by line item. So the framework or foundation is already present. I believe the intent is for the company to create a new cell on the work paper that already exists and say, this is the date it was completed, and here's the cost. So when we go into the annual rider review, the first part would be a mathematical derivation. It says, based upon the information that we provided or that's in Exhibit 1, what is the overall refund? The public staff will essentially spot check to say, okay, was that line placed in service? Demonstrate that that line was placed in service. Let's sample, okay, you said it was $39,000. We will invoice $39,000. Well, we'll validate the invoices aligned with the cost. And to the extent there's a mismatch, we'll elevate that to utility, and hopefully we can resolve those differences. The prudence investigation will not happen until we get to the next general rate case.
So prudence evaluation occurs in the next rate case, but on an ongoing basis, you're reviewing the actual in-service date as opposed to the original proposed in-service date and the totality of the cost. And then you're sitting there evaluating after it actually is placed in service, what the appropriate refund might be to benefit ratepayers.
Yes, sir, that is correct. Mr. Thomas?
Yeah, so I mean, we would focus our review there. So we expect it to be relatively similar to that, say, PINS rider. So it's kind of a short proceeding to get that. And so our review would likely potentially involve, quick site visits just to make sure things are plugged in and working, some data requests asking for power flows across certain devices, pictures of connected devices, just to kind of validate that those were placed in service, contractor sign-offs, punch lists, things of that nature, just to validate that things were placed in service on the date that they were placed in service.
Very good. Thank you. Let me look to see if there are any other questions from my fellow commissioners. Chair Brawley. Commissioner Tucker. Commissioner Gaida. All right. Questions on commissioner questions. All right. Well, you're certainly released at this time. Thank you for providing us with some insightful testimony. Since we are close to the time for our afternoon break, we're going to go ahead and break now. It is now 2:56 p.m. We will resume at 3:06 p.m. Yours at the back. But if you could put your left hand on the Bible.
Presiding Commissioner McKissick, I apologize for interrupting. I spoke with Counsel for Duke briefly during the break, and
Yes.
if now is an appropriate time to request that I move witness Collins' settlement testimony into evidence, given that the company is about to start its settlement and rebuttal witnesses.
Yes.
Thank you very much. At this time, I would move that the pre-filed supplemental testimony of SIGFOR witness Brian C. Collins in support of the comprehensive revenue requirement stipulation consisting of 5 pages filed in this docket on Monday, July 20th, 2026, be entered into the record as if given orally from the stand.
Without objection, your motion is allowed and it's quite timely.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And Presiding Commissioner McKissick.
Yes.
Duke Energy Carolinas would call to the witness stand. But they're already there. James Coyne and Thomas Heath.
All right. Thank you, gentlemen. Theoretically, you're under oath, but we're going to go ahead and swear you in one more time. Put your left hand on the Bible, raise your right hand. You solemnly swear the testimony you're about to provide in this proceeding will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
I do.
Thank you. May proceed.
Thank you, Commissioner McKissick. Mr. Heath, I'll start with you. You also provided direct testimony in this case, correct?
Yes, I did.
And Mr. Heath, did you cause to be pre-filed in this docket on June 19th, 2026, rebuttal testimony consisting of 47 pages and 6 exhibits?
Yes.
Do you have any changes to your rebuttal testimony or the exhibits at this time?
No, I do not.
If I were to ask you the same questions today that appear in your pre-filed rebuttal testimony, would the answers be the same?
Yes.
And your rebuttal exhibits included one that was confidential, correct?
That is correct.
Did you also pre-file a summary of your rebuttal testimony for the commission on July 8th, 2026?
Yes.
Mr. Heath, did you cause to be pre-filed in this docket on July 20th, 2026, settlement testimony consisting of 7 pages and no exhibits?
Yes.
Do you have any changes to your settlement testimony at this time?
No.
If I were to ask you the same questions that appear in your pre-file settlement testimony, would the answers be the same?
Yes, they would.
And your settlement testimony did not include any confidential information, correct?
That's correct. It did not.
And did you also pre-file a summary of your settlement testimony for the commission in the requisite docket on July 21st, 2026?
Yes.
Mr. Coyne, I'll turn to you. And you also provided direct testimony in this case, correct?
Yes, I did.
And did you cause to be pre-filed in this docket on June 19th, 2026, rebuttal testimony consisting of 131 pages and 14 exhibits?
Yes.
Do you have any changes or corrections to your rebuttal testimony at this time?
Yes, I have one. The source note on the lower table of coin rebuttal exhibit 13 should read risk premium OLS regression source coin rebuttal exhibit number 12. It currently reads coin rebuttal exhibit number 11. That's the only change.
And apart from that change, if I were to ask you the same questions today that appear in your pre-filed rebuttal testimony, would the answers be the same?
Yes.
And your rebuttal exhibit, or at least one of them, had a portion of the exhibit had confidential information. Is that right?
That's correct.
Did you also pre-file a summary of your rebuttal testimony for the commission on July 8th, 2026?
Yes, I did.
And Mr. Coyne, did you cause to be pre-filed in this docket on July 20th, 2026, settlement testimony consisting of 4 pages and no exhibits?
Yes.
Do you have any changes to your settlement testimony at this time?
No.
If I were to ask you the same questions today that appear in your pre-filed settlement testimony, would the answers be the same?
Yes.
And your settlement testimony did not contain any confidential information, did it?
It did not.
And did you also pre-file a summary of your settlement testimony for the commission on July 21st, 2026?
Yes, I did.
Commissioner McKissick, I would ask that Mr. Heath's rebuttal and settlement testimony be entered into the record as if given orally from the stand, as well as the summaries of his rebuttal and settlement testimony.
Without objection, your motion is allowed.
And Commissioner McKissick, I would further ask that witness Heath's 6 rebuttal exhibits be pre-marked for identification as pre-marked in the originally filed testimony.
Without objection, your motion is allowed.
And at this time, I would move their introduction into evidence.
Without objection, your motion is allowed.
Commissioner McKissick, I would ask that witness Coyne's rebuttal and settlement testimony be entered into the record as if given orally from the stand, as well as the summaries of his rebuttal and settlement testimony. And I would add with the one correction that he made from the stand today.
Without objection, your motion is allowed, specifically notating the one correction that Mr. Coyne made. I believe it was to Exhibit 13, perhaps. However, it was noted by him in his remarks from the stand as duly modified and corrected.
And further, I would ask that his 14 rebuttal exhibits be pre-marked for identification as pre-marked.
Without objection, your motion is allowed.
And I would move their introduction into evidence.
Without objection, your motion is allowed.
And with that, Commissioner McKissick, the witnesses are available for cross-examination and questions from the commission.
Now, I do have that North Carolina Justice Center et al. Has reserved time. So I want to recognize Mr. Neal.
Thank you, Presiding Commissioner McKissick. I don't think we'll use all that time. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
I figure, starting with your rebuttal testimony, Mr. Coyne, at page 35, you have a figure 5 that is a table summarizing the results of the models that you used to estimate an allowed return on equity in both your direct and as updated in your rebuttal, correct?
That's correct.
And there's a line on that table that says ROE model results, and that's what brings the results of all those into one figure, correct?
Yes.
Now, is the ROE model results typically your recommended allowed ROE with the caveat that you might adjust it for flotation costs, as you argue should be included?
Yeah. Yes. Oftentimes it is my guide.
Now, in this case, your recommendation in your direct was for a lower ROE than was reflected in ROE model results, correct?
That's right.
And then later on in rebuttal, you noted that the company had agreed to a 10.48% allowed ROE, correct?
Correct.
And now in settlement testimony, you acknowledged that DEC has agreed to an allowed ROE of 9.8%, which is outside of your range entirely, correct?
It is.
And so in settlement testimony, if we turn to page 3 of your settlement testimony, at lines 18 through 20, you instead cite to public staff witness Walters.
If you were just give me one more,
Oh, sure.
Neil, so I can catch up with your pace. I'll move to my settlement testimony.
Page 3, lines 18 through 20.
With you now.
And here you testified that the 9.8% is, however, within the range of ROE results, 9.0% to 9.9% presented by public staff witness Christopher C. Walters.
Correct.
And you would agree it's in the upper range of witness Walters' testimony.
Yes.
All right, switching gears, a forward-looking market risk premium as used in your analysis to derive a cost of equity estimate is supposed to produce a long-run expected market return, correct?
Yes.
And those long-term estimates are supposed to account for any short-term market volatility, correct?
No,
Okay. So it's your testimony that a long-term cost of equity estimate should not account for short-term market volatility.
well, let me go back to your prior question. Are you referring, I took from your prior question, you were asking me about the long-term market equity risk premium?
Yes.
And I thought your question was, does that long-run market equity risk premium account for short-run market volatility?
It was.
And my answer to that is no. Now I hear your question differently. I hear you asking if the overall ROE result should account for short-term market volatility. Is that what you're asking?
I am asking if your ultimate cost of equity estimate that uses the market risk premium is supposed to derive a long-run market expectation.
If you look at, well, I use 4 models. So just to separate your questions, one was asking about one input to one model, and I rely on 4 models in reaching my conclusion. And they have various timeframes associated with them, but I would characterize them generally as determining a forward-looking long-run cost of capital based on the best estimates we have today of the markets that form investor expectations. Inherently, there's a short-run focus to those investor expectations, but I characterize them as long-run equilibrium type expectations for these purposes.
And that equilibrium is to account for there's going to be short-term volatility, correct?
Short and long-term. There are short-term volatility, and there's also longer-term economic cycles. There will be recessions. There'll be a period of rapid economic growth. All that gets baked into these models.
Mr. Coyne, could you pull that mic closer to you?
Sorry. I'll both pull it and lean in.
Thank you for, it was a little challenging hearing him, so thank you.
Well, you would agree that returns over a 1-year period are not representative of long-run return estimates, correct?
Returns to what?
The market.
What's your measure of return?
The market.
So the S&P 500 return? They're not your question is, are they indicative of a long-run return?
Yes.
No.
Turning your attention to figure 16, I'm going back to your rebuttal testimony. And this is at pages 80 to 81.
I'm with you.
Here, it starts at page 80, where you describe this, but continues on to page 81. You purport here to compare Professor Demoteran's forward-looking equity risk premiums to actual growth in the market from the years 2010 through 2025.
Correct.
And you would agree that this figure 16 is an after-the-fact analysis of whether Professor Demoteran's forward-looking equity risk premiums were met in any given year?
That's correct.
Now, do you recall questioning from Walmart's counsel when you appeared on Direct about whether you had compared short-term analyst projections used in your market risk premium to what actually happened? I think she was referring in that questioning to a Dominion case.
I do.
And after some back and forth, you ultimately testified, quote, "and after the fact analysis of whether or not those expectations were met or not is not informative in terms of those investor expectations."
That was part of my testimony. I think I also indicated that it was challenging, if you look at the number of investment analysts that are covering these firms, to go back and look at each one and their predictions versus what actually occurred over the course of the 5-year period that they're analyzing, that they're projecting growth. That would represent a great challenge. But that's my view.
Okay. Are you familiar with Morgan Stanley?
Yes.
You would agree that it's important in their line of business to have an accurate cost of equity estimate?
That's too general of a question. Accurate for what purpose, I would ask. And Morgan Stanley produces a lot of data institutionally, so that's way too general for something I can respond to.
that part of their work involves advising investors, correct?
Yes.
And in advising investors, they would want to have a reasonably accurate cost of equity analysis, wouldn't they?
I guess it depends on the relationship you have with Morgan Stanley, what you're looking to them for those purposes. I don't know, well, again, your question's very general.
It is.
And so I can't say more than that about it.
Well, let's just, if I could, Presiding Commissioner McKissick, I'm going to turn to NCJC et al. Potential redirect exhibit 99. I put the notebook on the table and ask that it be marked as NCJC et al. Cross Heath Coin Rebuttal Settlement Exhibit 1.
Duly noted and identified for purposes of the record.
I'm sorry, this is a redirect or a
It is
cross?
a redirect exhibit number 99.
I see the exhibit.
So you see this as a report related to cost of capital from Morgan Stanley?
I do.
Now, directing your attention to page 16 of that report. Let me know when you're there.
I'm there.
And you see this is a part of the report where they're talking about the equity risk premium or ERP.
I do see that.
Okay. And so, yeah, continuing back to where we were on page 16, just directing you to the fourth paragraph on that page, you see where Morgan Stanley found that, quote, Demodoran's estimate of, again, talking about the equity risk premium, to be sensible, and note that FactSet uses its equity risk premium as the default in their calculations of the cost of capital.
I see that they say that.
Okay. I guess
I'm
this
not
time,
sure that Morgan Stanley has seen my table, figure 16, but reaching their conclusion.
at this time, we would move into the record, Exhibit 1.
Without objection, your motion is allowed.
Now, turning to also in your rebuttal, you have a figure 17 at page 84 of your rebuttal.
Yes.
And here you are purporting to show the spread between the risk-free rate used by Kroll and the market risk premium, if I've got that right. Let me make sure I've got that right. Also the equity risk premium used by Kroll, correct?
That's right.
Again, make sure I haven't missed something. Yes, could you now turn in that same notebook to potential redirect exhibit 112 or 112? And we would ask that this be marked as NCJC et al. Cross Heath Coin Rebuttal Settlement Exhibit 2.
I'm sorry,
Duly
which
marked and
exhibit are
identified.
you referring to?
Go ahead. I didn't mean to.
It's 112. It should be the last one in the notebook.
And we have identified 112 as your exhibit 2.
Before we leave, I'm just glancing at this report. I haven't looked at it since it was introduced, but on the very next page, on page 17, by the way, Morgan Stanley shows the expected return in U.S. equities calculated monthly from 2008 through 2022. And you can see the equity risk premium there that is substantially higher than what we're seeing from Professor Demadrian. So there's a lot of context in this Morgan Stanley report that I think one would need to consider before drawing substantial conclusions regarding that comparison. But in the very next page, I think you can see that the equity risk premium is substantially higher than what we're seeing from the NYU professor.
Are you referring to Exhibit 8 on page 17 of that report?
Yes, I am.
Do you see the source of that as Oswath Demodoran for the equity risk premium?
And that's history. That's not his forecast.
Well, I'll let the report speak for itself.
Well, as I see it. It all,
But I,
put
again,
it, put it this way, it ends in 2023, so I'm not saying a forecast.
again, I was directing you now to what's now been marked as Exhibit 2. Do you see that this is Kroll's from Kroll's website, the recommended U.S. equity risk premium and corresponding risk-free rate?
Okay, what number are you on?
112.
112. Okay, I'm with you.
Now, if you turn to page 2, there's a chart, the top line of which is the Kroll recommended U.S. equity risk premium. And then there's a green line below that, which is the risk-free rate. Do you see that?
I see that, yes. Well, it's spot and normalized. I'm not sure exactly what that spot and normalized means. So it's more than just the risk-free rate.
Well, just again, if we're turning back to your rebuttal testimony,
in my rebuttal testimony, it is the risk-free rate, which is the dotted line in figure 17. And examining it over the same period of time, well, this appears to be almost an exact replica of what's going on above it is the recommended U.S. Equity risk premium. So I think we'd have to understand what the so-called normalized risk-free rate is that they're using in this chart.
well, this is all I wanted to ask you. You would agree that in your figure 17, you use the Kroll equity risk premium as the black line on top, and then the dotted line below is not the Kroll risk-free rate, correct? It's not the risk-free rate reported by Kroll in its publication.
No, it is from the Federal Reserve Bank, which is the official source of the risk-free rate. I don't know what the green bar is in the Kroll page, but clearly it's not.
Well, it is, again, the exhibit speaks for itself. It says risk-free rate, spot, and normalized. And just to say that according to Kroll, the spread between the risk-free rate they use and the equity risk premium is different than what you presented in your figure 17, correct?
They're doing something to the risk-free rate with a so-called spot and normalized feature, which I can't understand by just glancing at it.
Okay. So at page 14 of your rebuttal,
just to read what's below it, and I can only look at what you're presenting me, if that's fair.
Sure.
Okay. Sorry, am I doing that again? Okay. It says we recommend using the spot 20-year U.S. Treasury yield as the proxy for the risk-free rate if the prevailing yield as of the valuation date is higher than a recommended U.S. normalized rate of 3.5%. So to me, what that's saying is that they have this baseline of 3.5% unless the spot yield is higher than that. So clearly that's not the risk-free rate. That's something that Kroll has created for whatever reason. But you can see that the actual risk-free rate is that I have in figure 17, which is from the Federal Reserve Bank, the official source of the risk-free rate.
Again, I was moving on to page 14, line 4 of your rebuttal. You testified, I'll wait for you to get there.
Which page am I rebuttal?
Page 14.
With you.
So at line 14 of your rebuttal, you testified that Dr. Keim.
And I'm sorry, are you on page 14?
I'm on page 14 of your rebuttal testimony.
Okay, and line
4.
I'm not seeing what you're seeing. Oh, okay, I'm sure on line 3. While Dr. Keim highlights PNW's continued growth. Is that where you are?
I apologize. I may have made a mistake in my notes. If you'd give me one moment, I will get you to the right place. What I have on page 14 of your rebuttal is at line 4, you testified that it starts at line 3. The part I was quoting was at line 4. He disregards that PNW's price declined by 28%. Are we not in the right place?
No, I see that.
Okay.
Yes.
So if I could, do you have his testimony with you?
Electronically.
Okay. Well, if it's easier, I could hand you a copy, but
It might be. If you have a full copy.
Mr. Mehta, may I approach your witness?
You may approach, yes.
It's just Steve Time's testimony. So your testimony was he disregards the Pinnacle West price decline, but I've handed you page 36 of his direct where he includes the stock price of Pinnacle West, showing the change in stock price at the time the Arizona Corporation Commission lowered the Arizona Public Service ROE to 8.7%. Do you see that?
Yes, and
Okay.
by disregards, I mean disregards in terms of the impact on the company's stock price of his recommendation.
And I'm sorry. So when you testified that he disregards the price decline, you didn't mean that he didn't acknowledge in his testimony? You meant something different?
Well, I think it speaks for itself. While Dr. Keim highlights P&W's continued growth in capital spending, he disregards that P&W's price declined by approximately 28% from around $88 to $63 a share. Then I go on to say with a subsequent reversal of this decision, the share price is recovered to approximately $100 a share. And what I mean by that is he's disregarding the impact of his recommendation in a parallel world on the impact of a company like DEC or its parent company Duke, if one were to adopt his approach to a recommended ROE that would be designed to produce a market to book ratio that approaches 1.
And
that's the full context of my testimony, and that's a piece of it.
And you recognize that his ROE recommendation in this case was 9.1%, which was not the ROE he would have recommended had he said that the market to book should be equal to 1, correct?
Yes, his recommendation was not 1.0 ultimately. It was 9.1% within a range from 7.7 to 9.3.
Now, again, turning your attention back to the testimony you provided during direct, do you recall back and forth we had about your recommendation in the Dominion rate case back in, I think, 2021, when you recommended a 10.8% ROE, and ultimately the commission agreed after a settlement to a 9.35% ROE? Do you recall that we had some question and answer on that topic?
I honestly don't
Okay.
recall that portion of our discussion,
Okay.
so I'll go as far as I can with it.
Fair enough. And in response to my question, I presented as an exhibit Dominion Energy stock performance in the period immediately after that commission decision. And you testified that, quote, you can never make a direct connection in the movement of a stock price to a regulatory decision. Do you recall that testimony?
I do, yes.
Isn't that exactly what you did in your discussion of Arizona Public Service and the effect of the reduced allowed return on equity on its company stock Pinnacle West?
Right. I think you need to keep it in perspective. It was a profound impact. You can't, what I hope I said in that discussion is you can't measure it exactly because there are other factors involved in determining a company's stock price. That's only one of the other factors that could impact Pinnacle stock price. But it was also the case, as I point out in my testimony, that the company was downgraded immediately by all of its credit rating agencies, 2 notches by Moody's and 1 notch by Standard & Poor's and Fitch. So it's the combination of the reaction to both the equity market and credit markets that I was pointing to as indicative of the significance of an impact of that type of a regulatory decision. Consistent with, and I felt consistent with the types of analysis and recommendations that I've seen some interveners make that could have that type of impact on Duke if they were to prevail.
Now, you referenced your rebuttal testimony, looking at the change in the cost of debt for Arizona Public Service. Did you calculate the reduction in the revenue requirement that resulted for Arizona Public Service when the authorized ROE went from 10% to 8.7%?
No, I did not, because it was subsequently reversed.
And
The thing is that when the cost of equity is reversed, that happens right away. When the point I was making there is that when you impact the cost of debt in that way, the debt that's issued by the company is oftentimes 30-year debt, as it is typically for Duke or DEC. So when you impact the cost of debt in the period when the company is issuing debt, that's a 30-year impact on the cost of debt. That never goes away.
and you
So
did,
that's a very different type of impact. It can be reversed in the case of an ROE decision, and you'll have an impact in the years that it takes effect, but it'll not be a 30-year impact like it is on the credit side.
and so I take it you also didn't analyze the reduction in the revenue requirement that resulted when it was adjusted to an 8.9% in 2023.
That's correct.
And it was later adjusted to 8.9%, correct?
I believe I have those adjustments in a footnote.
So
And there's a case currently pending for Arizona Public Service, and I think the company's request is 10.7%, as I recall.
all right, I have no further questions.
All right. I'm not seeing any other interveners in the queue. So we'll go to redirect.
No questions.
And of course, the commission staff does not have any questions. Let me look to my colleagues to see. Commissioner Brawley?
Oh, I think I'm gonna,
Pass.
yeah, I think I'm.
Commissioner Tucker?
Well, since Mr. Cohen's back, I don't think I have any questions.
Commissioner Gaida? All right, you gentlemen are released. Thank you for coming in.
Thank you.
And I
Yes, you need
think
to
I
go
need to
ahead.
move into admission to Exhibit 2.
You do?
Thank you.
Absolutely. Without objection, motion is allowed. And now we move back over here. Abernathy and Giggets. Giggets. You'll put your left hand on the Bible and raise your right hand. You solemnly swear the testimony you're about to provide in this proceeding will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
I do. I do.
Thank you.
Good afternoon again. I'm Molly Jaganathan here on behalf of Duke Energy Carolinas. Ms. Abernathy, on June 19th, 2026, did you cause to be pre-filed rebuttal testimony consisting of 21 pages and Abernathy rebuttal exhibits 3 and 4?
Yes.
Do you have any corrections to your pre-filed rebuttal testimony or exhibits?
No, I do not.
And if I ask you the same questions that are set forth in your pre-filed rebuttal testimony today, would your answers be the same?
Yes, they would.
Have you prepared a summary of your pre-filed rebuttal testimony that was pre-filed in this docket on July 8th, 2026?
Yes.
And Ms. Abernathy, on July 20th, 2026, did you cause to be pre-filed settlement testimony consisting of 7 pages and Abernathy Comprehensive Settlement Exhibits 1 through 4?
Yes.
Do you have any corrections to your pre-filed settlement testimony or exhibits?
No, I do not.
And if I asked you the same questions that are set forth in your pre-filed settlement testimony today, would your answers be the same?
Yes, they would.
Have you prepared a summary of your pre-filed settlement testimony that was filed in this docket on July 21st, 2026?
Yes.
Presiding Commissioner McKissick, at this time, the company would ask that Ms. Abernathy's pre-filed rebuttal and settlement testimony, as well as her summaries of that testimony, be entered into the record as if given orally from the stand.
Without objection, your motion is allowed.
Thank you. And we'd also move that Abernathy Rebuttal Exhibits 3 and 4 and Abernathy Comprehensive Settlement Exhibits 1 through 4 be marked as pre-filed and admitted into evidence.
Without objection, your motion is allowed.
Thank you. Now, Ms. Jiggets, on June 19th, 2026, did you cause to be pre-filed rebuttal testimony consisting of 49 pages and Jiggets Rebuttal Exhibits 1 through 3?
Yes, I did.
Do you have any corrections to your pre-filed rebuttal testimony or exhibits?
No, I do not.
And if I ask you the same questions that are set forth in your pre-filed rebuttal testimony today, would your answers be the same?
Yes, they would.
Have you prepared a summary of your pre-filed rebuttal testimony that was pre-filed in this docket on July 8th, 2026?
Yes, I have.
And Ms. Jiggets, on July 20th, 2026, did you cause to be pre-filed supplemental settlement testimony consisting of 11 pages and Jiggets Comprehensive Settlement Exhibits 1 through 3?
Yes, I did.
Do you have any corrections to your pre-filed supplemental settlement testimony or exhibits?
No, I do not.
And if I asked you the same questions that are set forth in your pre-filed supplemental settlement testimony today, would your answers be the same?
Yes, they would.
Have you prepared a summary of your pre-filed supplemental settlement testimony that was filed in this docket on July 21st, 2026?
Yes, I did.
Thank you. Presiding Commissioner, at this time, the company would ask that Ms. Jiggets' pre-filed rebuttal testimony and supplemental settlement testimony, as well as her summaries of that testimony, be entered into the record as if given orally from the stand.
Without objection, your motion is allowed.
Thank you. And we'd also ask that Jiggets Rebuttal Exhibits 1 through 3 and Jiggets Comprehensive Settlement Exhibits 1 through 3 be marked as pre-filed and admitted into evidence.
Without objection, your motion is allowed.
Thank you. Presiding Commissioner McKissick, the panel is now available for questions on the rebuttal and settlement testimony.
All right. Now, I'm not seeing where there's any interveners who have reserved time. Would that be correct? I see heads nodding, which means that you're going to get questions from commission staff and from commissioners. We'll try to get you through this painlessly as possible. And these are some clarifying questions more so than anything else. Regarding stipulation paragraph 6, and I'll give you a minute to get there. Now, this paragraph addresses depreciation and decommissioning studies. The stipulating parties agree to apply a 10% contingency factor instead of the contingency percentages proposed by either DEC or public staff. Could you provide additional explanation, preferably with a numerical example, is illustrating how the 10% contingency factor would be applied in the context of the MYRP? And specifically, it would be helpful to understand how the contingency affects the calculation of decommissioning costs and the resulting revenue requirement or customer rates over the course of the MYRP.
Want me to help? So this settlement this settlement item is related to the 10% contingency that's included in the decommissioning study that's included as part of the depreciation rates. So it's different than the contingency amounts that were included in the MYRP project estimates. But within the depreciation rates, I believe the public staff had proposed 0% contingency and our consultants had proposed 20% contingency to be used within that decommissioning study. And so instead, what we will use is a 10% contingency factor. So essentially, those decommissioning estimates will be recalculated based on the decommissioning study to get to a final amount with a 10% contingency included. And then the depreciation consultant will flow that through their model to produce the depreciation rates.
That's helpful. So you kind of met halfway, it sounds.
Yes.
Very good. Now, stipulation paragraph 16. I'll give you a minute to get there. Now, paragraph 16 provides that the contingency of NYRP2 projects proposed in this proceeding shall be 25% of the contingency amounts included in DEC's second supplemental testimony for a multi-year, multi-phase project. How does the company intend to apply this contingency percentage? For example, will the contingency be applied separately to each project phase as costs are incurred? Or will it be calculated once based upon the total estimated project cost and allocated across the project's duration?
So this is related to the amount of contingency that's included for the MYRP2 projects to get to the total in-service amount that we're estimating to go in service. And so within my work papers and within the calculations, every project, or not all projects, have contingency, but most of them do, varying levels of percentages. So what we've agreed to is to remove 75% of what we had included in those estimates so that only 25% of what we had proposed remains. And that will be used to set the final total amount that will be used for purposes of calculating the MYRP2 revenue requirement. So it'll just be applied once, and it's already applied in our calculations of the revenue requirement here. And then we'll use that final settled amount for the project to compare against actuals.
Thank you. Now, the stipulating parties have agreed that the company's bad debt deferral balance in this case shall include actual deferral amounts through June 2026, plus an estimated deferral amount of $12 million for the period from July through December 2026. If the actual deferral for this period is less than the 12 million, the stipulating parties have agreed that DEC shall defer the difference to be returned to customers in the next rate case. Will any return be applied to the refund amount?
The stipulation itself doesn't state if it will be subject to a return. I think that's something we'll assess. If that is triggered, we'll look at it and evaluate what the appropriate term would be at that time, if it would be WAC or debt only. But the stipulation as it's currently written does not.
Is silent when it comes to that.
Silent when it comes to it, but we would evaluate the adequacy of a return if that happens.
Okay, very good. Anything you'd like to add, Ms. Abernathy?
No.
Okay. All right. Now the next question is kind of a lengthy one, which I'm going to read in for purposes of the record. And our General Counsel, James West, will be happy to provide a written copy of it at the end, because we're going to be looking for a late file exhibit to provide some information. Okay? So I'll read it into the record, but you'll get it specifically in hard copy that'll be available to not only Duke, but anybody else who seeks that information. What we'd like you to do is please provide a joint comprehensive exhibit which starts from the historical test period and sets forth the proposed plant additions and related accumulated depreciation amounts separately for each of the following periods. A being the update period, B being the bridge period, C being MYRP rate year 1, D being MYRP rate year 2, and then based on all of the partial stipulations and the comprehensive settlement that was filed on July 20th, 2026, provide a red line exhibit which clearly indicate the changes to the proposed plan items agreed upon in the partial stipulation, as well as the comprehensive settlement Please provide supporting schedules with footnote references to the following applicable filed exhibits. These exhibits can be prepared in a similar format to the public staff's accounting Exhibit 1, Schedule 21A, 1A, Schedule 21A, 2A, and Schedule 21A, 2A1 filed on June 18th, 2026. So you'll get that in writing, hard copies, so you don't have to track how I stated it. In the event that I stated something that was ambiguous, it'll be clearly specified for purposes of the record. With that stated, I think we've concluded the questions from our commission staff, but let me look to my colleagues for other questions they may have. Chair Brawley does not have any. Commissioner Tucker, Commissioner Gaida. Well,
Can I just say one thing about
Sure.
that late file exhibit? It sounds very similar to what you asked when I was before you previously. said
Yes.
them, and we are currently working on that. And the way we have it laid out provides most of that information for you as well. So it will provide it by those buckets, and we have denoted for all the plant items that were up for debate between us and the public staff, how they were ultimately resolved between partial settlement, comprehensive settlement to provide that roll forward. So we are working on that, and you should have that.
excellent. I think the goal is to eliminate any potential ambiguity
Yes.
and to have it all in a concise, consistent format. So we thank you for working on that. We look forward to receiving it. Are there any questions on commissioner questions?
No questions from DEC.
All right, in that case, you're released at this time. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Of course, now we're moving to the last panel of the day. At least what I anticipate will be the last panel of the day. Oh, no, yeah, coming later, yeah. Once you're settled, we'll put you under oath. You could put your left hand on the Bible and raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear the testimony about providing this proceeding will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes, I do.
Thank you.
Thank you, Presiding Commissioner McKissick. As you have just seen, we've called the panel of Timothy J. Duff, Jonathan Byrd, and Morgan Beveridge to the stand. Mr. Duff, we're going to start with you first. Can you please state your name and business address for the record?
My name is Timothy J. Duff. My business address is 525 South Tryon Street, Charlotte, North Carolina, 28202.
And by whom are you employed and in what capacity?
I'm employed by Duke Energy Business Services LLC, otherwise referred to as DEBS, as the Managing Director, Large Load Strategy and Enablement. DEBS is a service company subsidiary of Duke Energy Corporation that provides services to Duke Energy and its subsidiaries, including Duke Energy Carolinas, or DEC, and its affiliated utility operating companies. In my role, I'm responsible for strategic oversight and execution of service delivery associated with the large load customer portfolio of Duke Energy's utility operating subsidiaries, including DEC.
And on June 19th, 2026, did you cause to be pre-filed in this docket rebuttal testimony consisting of 24 pages and no exhibits?
Yes,
Do you have any corrections to your pre-filed rebuttal testimony?
not to my knowledge.
And your rebuttal testimony did not include any confidential information, correct?
That is correct.
And if I ask you the same questions that are set forth in your pre-filed rebuttal testimony today, would your answers be the same?
Yes, they would.
And did you also prepare a summary of your pre-filed rebuttal testimony that was itself pre-filed in this docket on July 8th, 2026?
Yes, I did.
All right, Presiding Commissioner McKissick, at this time, DEC would ask that Mr. Duff's pre-filed rebuttal testimony, along with his pre-filed summary of his rebuttal testimony, be entered into the record as if given orally from the stand.
Without objection, your motion is allowed.
All right, thank you, Presiding Commissioner McKissick. Mr. Byrd, we're going to turn to you. Can you please state your name and business address for the record?
Yes, my name is Jonathan Byrd, and my business address is 293 Boston Post Road West, Suite 500, Marlborough, Massachusetts, 01752.
Thank you. And in what capacity are you providing this rebuttal testimony?
I'm providing this rebuttal testimony as a retained expert for DEC as a vice president at Concentric Energy Advisors LLC, which is a position that I took subsequent to the filing of my direct testimony in this proceeding. Since then, I've continued to assist DEC on the rate design, tariff, and service regulation issues addressed by this panel.
All right, and Mr. Byrd, on June 19, 2026, did you and Mr. Beveridge cause to be pre-filed in this docket joint rebuttal testimony consisting of 38 pages and 5 exhibits, including subparts?
Yes.
And subsequently, on June 25th, 2026, did you and Mr. Beveridge cause to be pre-filed in this docket Byrd Beveridge rebuttal exhibits 2.2_1 and 2.2.
Yes.
Do you have any corrections to your joint pre-filed rebuttal testimony?
I do not.
And did certain of the exhibits to your joint rebuttal testimony contain confidential information?
No.
And if I ask you the same questions that were set forth in your joint pre-filed rebuttal testimony today, would your answers be the same?
Yes.
And did you also prepare a summary of your joint pre-filed rebuttal testimony that was itself pre-filed in this docket on July 8th, 2026?
Yes.
All right, now let's move to the initial settlement, Mr. Byrd. So on July 7th, 2026, did you and Mr. Beveridge cause to be pre-filed in this docket joint settlement testimony consisting of 4 pages and 6 exhibits, including subparts?
Consisting of 15 pages and 6 exhibits, including subparts. Yes. That's right. Did I misunderstand you? My apologies.
You have the same number of pages there?
Can you repeat that? I'm sorry.
I'll just ask it again.
Okay.
Mr. Byrd, on July 7th, 2026, did you and Mr. Beveridge cause to be pre-filed in this docket joint settlement testimony consisting of 4 pages and 6 exhibits, including subparts?
Yes.
Do you have any corrections to your joint pre-filed settlement testimony?
No.
And if I ask you the same questions that are set forth in your joint pre-filed settlement testimony today, would your answers be the same?
Yes.
And did you also prepare a summary of your joint pre-filed settlement testimony that was itself pre-filed in this docket on July 7th, 2026?
Yes.
All right. Now, on July 13th, 2026, did you and Mr. Beveridge also cause to be pre-filed in this docket joint settlement testimony consisting of 6 pages and no exhibits?
Yes.
And do you have any corrections to that joint pre-filed settlement testimony?
No.
And if I asked you the same questions that are set forth in your joint pre-filed settlement testimony today, would your answers be the same?
Yes.
And did you also prepare a summary of your joint pre-filed settlement testimony that was itself pre-filed in this docket on July 21st, 2026?
Yes.
All right, now we're going to move on to the comprehensive supplemental settlement. On July 20th, 2026, did you and Mr. Beveridge cause to be pre-filed in this docket joint settlement testimony consisting of 5 pages and 6 exhibits, including subparts, as corrected on July 21st, 2026?
Yes.
And do you have any corrections to your joint pre-filed supplemental settlement testimony?
I do not.
And if I ask you the same questions that are set forth in your joint pre-filed supplemental settlement testimony today, would your answers be the same?
Yes.
And did you also prepare a summary of your joint pre-filed supplemental settlement testimony that was itself pre-filed in this docket on July 21st, 2026?
Yes.
Mr. Byrd, have you reviewed the 3rd amended comprehensive revenue requirement agreement and stipulation of settlement, which was filed on July 20th, 2026 in this docket?
Yes, I have.
And in your opinion, is the comprehensive settlement in the public interest, and should the commission adopt it in its entirety?
Yes, I support the comprehensive settlement as representative of negotiated compromises that reflect a give and take among the company and stipulating parties.
Thank you, Mr. Byrd. Mr. Beveridge, you're going to get some action here. So turning to you, can you please state your name and business address for the record?
Yes, my name is Morgan Beveridge. My business address is 525 South Tryon Street, Charlotte, North Carolina.
All right. And by whom are you employed and in what capacity?
I'm employed by Duke Energy Business Services as Director of Rates and Regulatory Planning. I lead a team responsible for rate design, rate analytics, and load research across Duke's jurisdictions.
And have you previously filed testimony in this docket?
I had not.
And your rebuttal, settlement, and supplemental settlement testimony with Mr. Byrd was filed jointly, correct?
Yes, it was.
And if I asked you the same questions that are set forth in your joint pre-filed rebuttal settlement and supplemental settlement testimony today, would your answers be the same?
Yes.
And Mr. Beveridge, have you reviewed the third amended comprehensive revenue requirement agreement and stipulation of settlement, which was filed on July 20th, 2026 in this docket?
I have, yes.
And in your opinion, is the comprehensive settlement in the public interest, and should the commission adopt it in its entirety?
Yes, support the comprehensive settlement as representative of negotiated compromises that reflect give and take between the company and stipulating parties.
All right, thank you, Mr. Beveridge. Presiding Commissioner McKissick, at this time, DEC would ask that the joint pre-filed rebuttal testimony filed on June 19th, the pre-filed settlement testimonies of Mr. Byrd and Mr. Beveridge filed on July 7th, the 13th, 21st, 2026, along with the pre-filed summary of their rebuttal and settlement testimonies, be entered into the record as if given orally from the stand, and that Byrd Beveridge rebuttal exhibits, Byrd Beveridge settlement exhibits, Byrd Beveridge comprehensive settlement exhibits, and corrected comprehensive settlement exhibits be pre-marked for identification and moved into evidence.
Without objection, your motion is allowed.
Thank you, Presiding Commissioner McKissick. This panel is now available for cross-examination and questions from the commission.
Thank you. I show first in the queue, ADS, Mr. Josie.
Yes, Robert Josie on behalf of Amazon Data Services and Presiding Commissioner McKissick. If I could address your earlier statement about the comprehensive settlement.
Yes.
I'd just like to note for the record that Amazon filed a letter supporting the large load proposal in paragraph 15 of the settlement in the docket earlier today. That was filed right before
Okay.
I came to the hearing and was admitted into the docket right as you were finishing your statement. So just wanted to note that for the record. Amazon doesn't have any other objections to any other terms.
Thank you. I'm glad we got that clarified for purposes of the record, because was I looking at it a half hour, an hour earlier, it wasn't there.
It's there now.
Thank you.
Okay, great. Having said that, I do have a couple questions for the panel. Mr. Byrd and Mr. Beveridge, on page 9, lines 10 through 14 of your rebuttal testimony, you recommend a tier structure to your notification of termination provisions. I'll give you a second to.
You say the page number again, please?
Page 9, lines 10 through 14. And you recommend a tier structure to your notification of termination provisions, correct?
Yes.
Okay, and the notification for customers over 250 megawatts is 48 months or 4 years. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's what I wanted to check. So we did recommend a tiered structure for the notification periods that has thresholds at 250, 200 below 250, and then 250 to 500, and then above 500. And so the 24 months applies below 250, 36 months between 250 and 500, and then the 48 months actually applies above 500.
Above 500?
Yes.
Okay, my mistake. Thank you for clarification. And that is to allow Duke to pivot on their planning and construction schedules. Is that correct?
Yes, yeah, the notification period, I think is primarily related to a lot of the issues that were discussed here in the CPIRP proceeding that preceded this, but thinking about these larger customers that have more direct impact on our resource planning and on specific investments, this would provide sufficient time to adjust that resource plan to mitigate, impacts from a change in contract demand or a termination.
And as you stated, you brought up the CPIRP process. Isn't it true that Duke's CPIRP process is to file a new plan every 2 years?
That's correct.
So if Duke is able to check and adjust its resource plan every 2 years, why does the notification period have to have a cycle of basically 2 CPIRP periods?
There's probably a number of reasons for that someone our resource planning team could go into in more detail, but I would say from a simple level, it's that we engage in projects that take longer than 2 years to complete. Generation projects have to be, planned, permitted, construction, that can take, a number of years beyond the 2 years in between planning cycles. So it would be in recognition of those longer term transmission generation projects in particular.
Okay, and then switching to the reduction in capacity provisions that you also note on page 9. You recommend a one-time reduction of 20% of load after 7 years of service. Is that correct?
Yes, that would, the tariff would allow a 20% reduction in contract demand without penalty, with notice after the 7-year anniversary.
Okay, and how did you reach that 7-year time period?
Yeah, go ahead.
So typically we were thinking about a 5-year ramp for the load to come online, and that gives you 2 years of a full run with that full ramp, and getting the minimum billing demands for a solid 2 years before such contract reduction occurs. So it's kind of thinking about it through that lens.
And that makes sense. And that kind of answers my next question, which was, is it inclusive of the load ramp? So yes.
Yes.
Thank you. Mr. Duff, don't want to leave you out. You state on page 23, lines 12 through 13 of your testimony that companies with signed ESAs have made significant capital decisions based in part on the expectations regarding the binding terms and conditions of the ESA with Duke. Is that correct?
There's one word different. It says substantial, not significant, but yes.
Yeah.
Other than that, yes, spot on.
Yeah. Can you explain what you mean by substantial capital decisions in that sense?
They are spending billions of dollars to build these data center campuses, or advanced manufacturing facilities. And hence they're basing the decision to make those investments on the ESA being in place so that they can have electric service and justify those investments.
Thank you. No further questions.
Thank you. Next in the queue is Attorney General's office. Following would be CUCA. No questions? Okay. Google.
Good afternoon. Thank you. Heather Fennella Brooks Pierce on behalf of Google. I have just a few questions for you, just in case the stipulating party's agreement to do this in another docket doesn't come forward. Okay. So I'm going to start with, can you turn, or you may not need to, but can you turn to your exhibit 1, which is your large load tariff?
Yes.
Your rebuttal exhibit 1. Actually, let me back up. Is it my understanding that when you filed your testimony originally, you did not have a large load tariff? That's correct.
In my direct testimony, I did not include a separate large load tariff. That's correct.
And the public staff has filed a large load tariff with their testimony, and then you did file a tariff, your rebuttal testimony.
We filed a tariff with our joint rebuttal testimony. It's exhibit 1 here. As I mentioned during the direct testimony period, it is not a standalone tariff, so it does not have distinct demanded energy charges, but it would work in concert with an underlying tariff like OPTB or HLF. So just drawing that distinction, yes, we filed this in rebuttal.
And in the stipulation that was filed this week and amended this week, the intent is to either discuss this in a separate docket or a docket that it acts parallel to this docket, so it can be decided by essentially January 1st. Is that correct?
I think the company said in there, I have to look at the exact words, but that we would not oppose that if that's ordered, yes.
Ms. Fennell, if you could speak a little louder or more directly into the microphone. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Is it your understanding that the company will continue or will engage in these stakeholder sort of discussions over the next couple of weeks, regardless of whether the commission has had a chance to issue an order on the proposal for a separate docket?
So I think the company would look for direction regarding this. The stipulation does not speculate or say whether or not Duke would convene the stakeholder engagement. And it also is broader than just the Duke utilities.
Mr. Duff, Tim, could you bring that microphone closer for your answers? Thank you.
Yeah, sorry about that.
Yeah.
Do I need to repeat that?
It would be good if you could.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the stipulation, per my reading, does not specify who convenes the stakeholder process. It really says that if the commission were to rule on the pending motion to move forward, that then a stakeholder process should be convened, and it gives an illustrative timeframe. But again, because it doesn't specify who's convening the stakeholder process, nor the fact does it address that there's an additional utility besides the Duke utilities mentioned in the stipulation. I wouldn't want to speculate who was responsible for convening the stakeholder process.
I think, okay, turning back to your large load tariff. It's proposed as bird beverage rebuttal exhibit 1. Okay. So starting at the top, the first full paragraph, last sentence, it says that customers who request incremental service meeting the criteria above shall be subject to these provisions. Can you help me understand what you mean by incremental service?
Yes, it would be, it would require an amendment to an existing ESA. And it would, the large load tariff would come into play if an increase in load or if new load met the criteria for the large load tariff. So at minimum 50 megawatts at 80% load factor or above 100 megawatts.
Okay. So a customer would approach you to engage in that conversation. Is that correct? So would it see to engage new service or incremental service?
Yes, it would be a new customer or an amendment to an existing ESA, increasing that contract demand. So it would be initiated by the customer in a dialogue with the customer.
And I assume you're familiar with the public staff proposed large load tariff or schedule LL, I believe is they call it. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. So would you agree that a difference between the Duke and the Duke proposal and the public staff proposal is the applicability? With the public staff saying that it would apply to any customer that takes service on or after January 1st, and Duke's proposal applies to any customer that signs a letter agreement or an ESA after January 1st, 2027. Is that correct?
Yeah, go ahead. So I'll say I am not perfectly clear on what public staff is recommending as far as applicability and which customers it would apply to and exactly how it might modify existing ESAs. So I hesitate to draw a clear distinction there, but I think you correctly sort of represented the company's large load tariff, which would only apply to expansions of at least 50 megawatts on or after January 1st, 27.
Okay, Mr. Duff, I have a question for you. Can you tell us how long it takes for a customer to work its way through Duke's, I believe you call it their large load interconnection process. So from when you first approach Duke to when you sign the ESA?
Yeah, sure. So there are different phases. It can take up to, make sure I get this right. It can take up to approximately 180 days in total, I believe.
Or if I'll direct you to your testimony, if you look on page 9, line 16 and 17.
Yep.
It says the entire process from initial request to ESA spans approximately 300 days. Is that the outside?
Well, yeah, because
Okay.
there is I guess I was thinking after we started signing agreements, but
Okay.
yes, there's initial studies and conversations. That's
Okay.
correct.
So is it 180 days from the letter agreement to the ESA? Is that what you're thinking of?
That's what I'm thinking. Yes.
Okay. So is it under the Duke proposal, is it possible that you were going to capture someone that has a letter agreement but not an executed ESA as of January 1st? Is that the intent with this may be a Mr. Beveridge question, but your tariff? Is that correct?
I believe, and Mr. Beveridge or Mr. Bird can correct me, but I believe the terms associated with a large load tariff are applicable to ESAs. So I think it would be ESAs.
So if you don't have a signed ESA as of January 1st, 2027, you would be subject to this tariff.
That's how I read it, but I would let Mr. Beveridge clarify.
I do as well. That would be my expectation that all new ESAs or modified ESAs signed after January 1st, the large load tariff would apply to, even if they did have a letter agreement before January 1st.
But also, based on the other testimony, largely the EA or the letter agreements you're signing now have terms similar to what you're proposing in this. And your current ESAs are similar to what you're proposing here with certain distinctions. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. These are all my questions. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Microsoft.
Good afternoon, gentlemen. Ben Snowden here on behalf of Microsoft. Mr. Beveridge, I think these questions for you, and I just have a few about termination penalties. So on page 12 of the panel's testimony, you will testify about termination penalties, and you note that other parties have proposed termination penalties that are equal to all remaining minimum bills under an ESA. Is that right?
Could you point me to a line
Sure.
reference?
Would be starting on line 3.
A rebuttal testimony?
Yes, your rebuttal testimony. Sorry.
Page 12, line 3.
Yes.
So I'll just read some interveners proposed termination penalties exceeding those in the LLT, company's large load tariff.
Yeah, understood. Yeah, and in your testimony, you characterize those as punitive. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay, and to be clear, that's because this is not explicit in your testimony, but to be clear, I mean, is that because the purpose of termination fees is to allow the company to recover the cost of potential stranded assets?
That's right. I would say it is intended to capture costs of stranded assets, which could be sort of, to use public staff's parlance, dedicated facilities if a customer didn't move into that location. And then it would be really a time-based, like we talked about the resource planning, providing time through revenue to be able to adjust the resource plan to redeploy those assets. And when we say punitive in some of that discussion, it's to say that we don't believe termination damages should be designed to recover 100% of all incremental resources, because a lot of those resources, like system assets, transmission and generation assets, will be redeployed and used within the system. And so it's more of providing the time to adjust the resource plan to get back to where you would have been without that customer.
May I add?
Yes.
So I agree with Witness Beveridge. When I think about other utilities and other tariffs that have included termination penalties that are much greater, they also include mitigation provisions that attempt to capture those assets being used by other customers. So you'll set a higher termination value, and then you'll reduce that damage or penalty by the expectation that those assets will be redeployed. So what the company is doing here is we are already assuming that those assets are going to be redeployed through the IRP process that Witness Beveridge just talked about just a minute ago. So with that assumption, we've set a reasonable, appropriate termination level without mitigation, because we're already assuming they're going to be redeployed and reused in the IRP process. So that's the distinction there, setting it a higher, much higher termination, like for the remaining contract, without any provision for mitigation. I think that's certainly where we would say, well, that's punitive, and that fails to recognize the fact that these assets have continuing value and will be used.
Thank you. And how does Duke propose to calculate liquidated damages for early termination in its tariff?
So liquidated damages would begin after the notice period. So we talked about the tiered notice periods. And so during those notice periods, 100% of minimum bills and extra facility charges would apply. And then after that notice period, the termination penalty, liquidated damages for termination would apply. And that would be calculated as 25% of remaining minimum bills plus all extra facility charges. And see if I can pull this up here. Is that it? Am I missing anything?
That's right.
Great, thank you. You need a break. We're going to take a 5-minute break. It's now about 5:22. Why don't we resume a little more than 5 minutes, around 5, excuse me, I said 4:22. I should have said 4:22, 4:30. Okay? Thank you. All right, we are ready to go back on the record to reconvene and proceed with the cross-examination.
Thank you, Presiding Commissioner McKissick. Mr. Burt, Mr. Beveridge, we were talking just before the break about the company's proposed calculation of liquidated damages for early termination in the essays.
Yes, I trailed off in my last answer. If you mind me just
No, please go
clarifying
ahead,
here. So just to clarify, after the notice period, it would be 25% of minimum bills plus the net present value of remaining extra facilities charges.
Okay, thank you. It's my understanding that the company at this time does not support the direct assignment of transmission and generation costs to all large load customers. Is that right? That's correct. Okay. Understanding that that is the company's position right now. If some of those costs, some transmission or generation costs triggered by large load customers were directly assigned to large load customers, that would reduce other ratepayers' exposure to stranded assets. Is that right?
I think there's a lot of questions that would have to be answered with respect to that, because there's I believe Witness Hager on my direct panel spoke about this a little bit, the interaction with cost of service and how that would play out with your current classes and how the direct assigned costs would be determined and then how they would impact the cost of service process, which is upstream of the rate design process.
And I would just add that I think you're speaking to a interaction between provisions of the tariff. And so if you did have direct assignment or CIAC of T&D facilities, that reduces the exposure of stranded costs, and you would presume that any termination damages or contract reduction penalties should reflect that change.
You are so much smarter than me. As you've gotten right to it. You've answered the question that I haven't even asked. So those are all my questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you. We now have North Carolina Justice Center et al.
Good afternoon, Menashe Magaru on behalf of NCJC et al. Try to be as efficient as I can be here. I want to start off, I think, talking about the origin of this large load tariff that Duke is now proposing. Mr. Duff, I think you testified on page 7, lines 6 through 9 of your rebuttal testimony. Let me know when you're there.
I am there.
So I'm reading here, in developing its proposed large load tariff, DEC incorporated constructive recommendations from the public staff and other parties in this proceeding and the large load docket, including tiered performance measures based on project size. Do you see that language?
Yes.
All right. And just to kind of put a fine point on this, in developing and proposing its large load tariff, Duke didn't rely on large load tariffs from other jurisdictions, did it?
I think it was not copy of something else that was done, but the company, as I think, as well as other stakeholders, are aware and their opinions were informed by other large load tariffs.
And I just want to clarify. So what I hear you saying is that other parties who have proposed large load tariffs in this proceeding are maybe not copying large load tariff proposals from other jurisdictions, but they are aware of them and are accounting, or I guess taking those into account in their proposals.
So, Presiding Commissioner McKissick, I would object to any aspect of that question that is asking about motivations, intentions, thoughts, or plans of other parties in this proceeding with respect to their thoughts on large load tariffs, their creation, development, etc. He's testifying on behalf of DEC.
May I respond? I'm just clarifying and repeating back what I heard, like to the extent that he is saying something differently, obviously, happy to continue, but I at least heard the witness sort of say that in looking at proposed large load tariff proposals from other parties, he believed that those large load tariff proposals took into account other proposals from other jurisdictions. So I'm merely just trying to clarify what the witness said on the stand. I'm not trying to inject the opinions of other parties.
If I
Yes.
may be heard, I understand the clarification, but there's a difference between asking Mr. Duff what he takes away from what is on the face of other large load tariffs in other jurisdictions as far as what he can deduce versus what he actively thinks went into the creation of those other large load tariffs by other entities.
I'm going to sustain the objection. I think the answer that was provided is clear for purposes of the record. You may proceed with your cross-examination.
Yeah. All right. Turning to the large load tariff terms, you would agree that Duke Energy Carolinas has proposed the same tariff eligibility thresholds as the public staff. So this is namely the 50 megawatt threshold and the 80% load factor. And if you look at exhibit page 1, I think it sort of goes into those thresholds. Is that a fair summation?
There's one distinction with respect to size and load factor, and that above 100 megawatts does not have a load factor criteria on Duke's proposed tariff. My understanding of public staffs is that 80% threshold would apply across all customers on the tariff.
Okay. Thanks for that. And then with regards to the contract term, and again, I guess this kind of goes to the 100 megawatt threshold. Duke's proposal would have the greater of 10 years or 5 years plus the load ramp period for large load customers who are below 100 megawatts. Is that fair?
Yes.
And then the greater of 15 years or 10 years plus the load ramp period for customers above that 100 megawatt threshold. Is that fair?
Yes.
Okay. And that's pretty similar to the public staff's proposal, except the after load ramp period, after load ramp date. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I could just explain that a little bit because the wording is a little bit complicated or nuanced. But basically, the public staff is proposing those 10 and 15 years, and they also propose a cap on the load ramp of 5 years. And just working with customers, we see cases where customers may want a longer load ramp, and longer load ramps aren't necessarily a bad thing. It actually gives Duke more time to plan for that load, to integrate it into our resource plan. If plans do change, it's like more runway to be able to make those adjustments. So we wouldn't want to tell a customer with a 7-year load ramp, you can't do that. You have to get it done in 5, potentially get an artificially short load ramp that they're not going to be able to meet. But I think an aspect of that is if you do have a longer load ramp, that should be reflected in the contract terms, that you do have a certain period of time at that full load. And so that's really what's being shown here, that if you have a load ramp longer than 5 years, those additional years are just being added to the contract term. So above 100 megawatts, if the standard term is 15 years, but you want a 6-year load ramp, well, that just adds 1 year to your contract term and gets you to 16 years. So it's a way of giving flexibility to the customer with respect to their load ramp while still getting at the sort of like pricing and cost risk of longer term for a longer load ramp.
Thanks. And I think you answered one of the questions I was going to ask with regards to the load ramp. With regards to minimum billing demand, that's 75% of contract demand based on the electric service agreement load ramp. Is that fair? And I can direct you to okay. And then this may have been talked about a little bit, but just on the no penalty contract demand reduction piece, I read the large load tariff proposal to allow a no penalty contract demand reduction of up to 20% after the 6-year anniversary of service. And happy to direct orient you to the pages.
Yes, that's right. I think we mentioned 7 years earlier, so just clarification there. With a contract reduction, we're proposing a 12-month notice period. So it'd be after 6 years of service, but then there'd be an additional 1-year notice period. So it wouldn't effectuate until the 7th year.
Okay. And again, this is kind of going back to some testimony you gave on the stand earlier. Given that there's no limit on the load ramp period, and so this is a hypothetical, so happy to break this up if necessary. Let's say you have a 100 megawatt large load customer. They start in year 1, 10% of their contract demand. So that should be 10 megawatts. If they add 10% demand each year through year 6, you get to 60%. So they'd be about 60 megawatts. You follow me so far?
Presiding Commissioner McKissick, I don't launch a lot of objections. I try not to, but to the extent that this question is a hypothetical, I would object to that extent. the commission, if the witness feels he can answer, understood, but I would object to this hypothetical question.
Could you repeat the question?
I'm happy to. So I'll repeat it again. With no limit on the load ramp period, if you had, let's say, 100 megawatt large load customer, they start in year 1 of service at 10% of demand. So to be at 10 megawatts, they add 10% per year through year 6, you get to 60%, 60 megawatts. And can I respond to council's objection if possible?
Yes.
That was a part of where I'd gotten to so far. The purpose of this hypothetical is for me to drill down on essentially what the actual minimum bill and demand charges would be under the large load tariff. That's the only reason why I'm getting into this. I'm not trying to lock in the witness to say this is the necessary result that comes from that, but I am trying to, and I think the commission would benefit from understanding a little bit more what the actual flow through impacts are. The witness has already said that there is some nuance with regards to this large load tariff, and that is what these questions are designed to elicit.
Okay. I'm going to overrule the objection, but answer the question to the extent you're able to do so. If you need to supplement your answer to provide context for what your answer is, feel free to do so as well. And if you do not feel you're able to answer it, certainly just state that for purposes of the record.
All right, thank you. I'll proceed. So 60 megawatts, I think that's where we left off. Following so far?
Yes.
All right, so in year 7, if I'm understanding the large load tariff proposal correctly, they could, if they wanted to, reduce their contract demand by 20%. Is that fair?
Yes, their full load contract demand within the contract at the end of the load ramp.
And so they would be at 80% of the original contract demand, which would be 80 megawatts for purposes of this hypothetical.
I'll say continue. I have to keep this in my head, but yeah.
All right. So in that case, with this 100 megawatt large load customer, the final billing demand is going to be 75% of the new final contract demand. Is that fair?
The minimum billing demand is 75% of the contract demand in effect at the time. That would follow the load ramp. If the customer amended their ESA to change their load ramp and or their full demand within the ESA, that would be reflected in their minimum billing demands.
Okay. And so for purposes of just this limited hypothetical, just trying to clarify the implications of this large load tariff proposal. The minimum billing demand in this hypothetical would be 60% of the original contract demand, or 60 megawatts. If we're doing just 75% of 80 megawatts.
I think that's right. Yeah.
Okay.
In year 7.
Yeah. That's all I'm trying to elicit, just trying to understand the implications of this. All right. I believe we've talked about termination damages, or not. We specifically, counsel from Microsoft, talked to y'all about that. So I don't want to tread retrotting ground. So with regards to security, I think y'all discussed this on page 8 of your rebuttal testimony. Let me know when you're there.
I'm there.
All right. So as I understand it and read your testimony, security for purposes of this large load tariff proposal can be cash, letter of credit, or parent guarantee.
Or a combination of those.
Or combination thereof. Yes, thank you for the clarification. Okay. Again, only asking you to testify to the extent of your knowledge here, but are you aware of the corporate restructuring and Meta's development of the Richland Parish data center project in Louisiana? And if you're not aware, we can move on. But just asking if the panel's aware of this.
I'm not.
Okay. All right, let's move on to the mandatory curtailment provisions or provision of the large load tariff. Mr. Duff, I think this question is directed to you. Only asking you to testify to the extent of your knowledge, recognizing you're not a lawyer, but would you agree that the federal rules imposing operational restrictions on emergency generators appear in the new source performance standards and the national emission standards for hazardous air pollutants?
I'm not necessarily aware.
Mr. Duff, I need you to speak up into the
I'm
mic.
sorry. I'm not specifically aware of those provisions that you mentioned. Are you talking about the portion of my testimony where I talk about Section 202C of the Federal Power Act?
Well, that's, I guess, later in my question, but
Okay.
I guess as a sort of threshold issue, are you aware of those two standards that I talked about? And if you're not, we can skip this, but
I'm not aware of those specific standards, no.
that's fine. All right. I think sticking with you, Mr. Duff, and I think staying on page 8, because I think that's where our questioning left off last. And I'm looking at line 15 and then going through page 10, line 2. You talk about the large loading interconnection queue. Is that roughly where you talk about it?
Yes.
Okay. So I see your testimony describing a serial study process for individual large load customers. Is that a fair summation of what you're describing here that applies?
I think that's a fair summation.
And this is a clarifying question. Are large load customers as a whole studied in serial, or are they studied in clusters for purposes of this queue process that exists?
I believe they're studied in serial.
Okay. And just as a general matter, not only for this, I guess, question that I have, but just more generally with regards to this large load interconnection queue process, is this policy, I guess, written down or codified somewhere?
We have internal documentation, yes.
Okay. And in either case, the study process identifies or is intended to identify needed network upgrades and other costs, right? And I'm looking at page 9, no, sorry, page 9, line 3 of your testimony.
Yes, the class 5 cost estimate and projected timelines for necessary network upgrades.
Okay. And if there were a way for customers to interconnect that ensure that they wouldn't trigger those upgrades, then the study process might not be needed for those customers. Is that fair?
I think the study process would be used to determine whether there was network upgrades needed for the interconnection.
Okay. All right. Let's go to page 7, and I think I'm staying with you, Mr. Duff. Starts with line 11 and going through page 8, line 3. Let me know when you're there.
Page 7, line 11.
Yeah. You there? Okay. And here we start talking about large load benefits. And I believe earlier in your testimony, you cite the CPRP analysis that was conducted on large load benefits analysis. You recall that testimony?
Yes.
Have you had a chance to review the public staff's white paper critique of large load benefits, that specific analysis?
No, I haven't. I didn't really perform that analysis, so I didn't review the public staff's critique.
Okay. That's fine. So I think this question is directed to witnesses Bird and Beveridge. The two of you addressed revenue apportionment on page 31, I believe, of your rebuttal testimony. Let me know when you're there.
I'm there.
Okay. And then I believe on the next page, you discuss interclass subsidies as a general matter. Do you recall that testimony?
Yes.
Okay. And have you heard testimony, I think just during this hearing from, that has basically, I think is tantamount to the fact that there's a belief that clients are subsidizing other ratepayers. Is that testimony that you've heard at points during the proceeding?
Can you repeat that? That you said that clients are.
Let me rephrase it because it is a little bit unclear. Have you heard testimony from some of the experts from some of the large customers in this proceeding that their clients, these large load customers, are actually subsidizing other ratepayers? Have you heard testimony to that effect?
I listened to their testimony. I think I don't recall the specific question that you're asking about.
I think I'm just talking about just general. Have you heard testimony to that effect? I'm not necessarily like pinpointing one expert witness or not, but if you've heard testimony to that effect, that's and you could speak to that. That's really what the question's getting to.
I listened to their testimony in this proceeding.
Okay. Would you agree as a general matter that any estimated interclass subsidies are going to depend on the cost allocation methodology that you use?
Yes.
And with a different cost allocation methodology, you might have interclass subsidies that go in another direction.
if you use a different cost of service methodology, you're going to get a different result in terms of the interclass subsidization. That's correct.
Okay. Last three questions here, and this is going back to you, witness stuff. You testify on page 19 of your rebuttal testimony. Let me know when you get there.
I'm there.
So this is line 6 through 7, and I'm summarizing or paraphrasing here. You state that Duke cannot lawfully refuse to serve a customer just because it's large. You see that testimony?
Yes.
And you also testify, this is on page 7 of your rebuttal testimony. And let me know when you get there.
I'm on page 7.
Yeah, so you testify against the public staff's recommendation of a moratorium on additional large load electric service agreements. Do you see that?
Yes.
But it's not Duke's position that the Utilities Commission has no control over large load additions, is it?
My testimony dealt specifically with the public staff's recommendation that the commission create a moratorium. And I don't believe that that is proper. And for the reasons I testified to regarding potentially significantly stifling a significant opportunity for economic development, which the public staff also recognized is in the best interest of the state of North Carolina.
No further questions.
All right. Thank you. It looks like Nucor is next in the queue. I don't know if Nucor has any questions. Come on up if you do.
Afternoon, Commissioners.
Sure.
Joseph Briscar for Nucor Steel Lexington. I believe most of my questions have already been asked and answered, so I just have a couple. The proposed large load tariff would define large load customers in part as customers with a contract demand of 50 megawatts or more and an expected load factor of 80% or greater, right?
Yes.
With I believe, are we talking about the company's proposed in
Yes.
rebuttal?
Yes.
Just to clarify, the total contract demand of 100 megawatts or more does not have the load factor of 80% restriction that I think you were implying in your question.
Right, but the 50 megawatt threshold includes an 80% load factor pairing, correct?
Correct.
Yeah. And does the 50 megawatt threshold or actually any of the megawatt thresholds apply to total firm demand or total firm and interruptible demand?
Generally, these thresholds would apply to firm demand.
So if a customer had, 10 megawatts of firm load and 50 megawatts of interruptible load, it would not apply to that customer?
So I would want to be clear and look at specific examples of the terms you're using of firm and then interruptible. We have, demand response programs, things like that you could consider interruptible, and that would not, take you out of this tariff. But we specifically define non-firm service that has a specific definition and tariff associated, and that form of non-firm service would not be included in the eligibility capacity.
So that definition of non-firm service would be elsewhere in the company's tariff, is that right?
Spelled out very clearly in our DEP tariffs. I'm trying to recall if we have a clear non-firm tariff in DEC. I don't think that we do.
I don't think that we do.
Okay.
Yeah.
Moving on. So the proposed tariff says it would apply under the 50 megawatt threshold to a load with an expected load factor of 80% or more. Is that right? We just discussed this. Right.
Yes.
Would the expected load factor measurement be based on a customer's projected annual load factor at full operation?
I would say monthly average load factor is typically the most common kind of metric we would use around defining load factor.
Okay, and this is something that would the customer would report to you when they're signing the ESA or adding the expanded load, what their expected load factor will be on a monthly basis?
Yeah, so the large load tariff provisions are primarily ESA provisions that really need to get built into the ESA on the front end. It's not something that could sort of be tacked on afterward. So that 80% threshold is really going to be an initial determination as we're negotiating with the customer. Customer provides information as far as what loads they expect to have, what maximum demands, what how much energy they expect. And so it'd really be through those upfront negotiations of understanding the load, what delivery equipment we need to supply, that would get us to an estimate of the load factor that we expect. And you're really making that determination upfront when you're negotiating the ESA based on the load information from the customer.
Okay. So jumping forward, let's say that the tariff does apply to incremental service. A customer adds at least 50 megawatts of load and an 80% load factor. The requirements under the tariff would only apply to that incremental load, correct?
They would not. So it would, well, let me clarify. It would depend how it's structured. If an ESA were amended to add 50 megawatts above 80% load factor, we don't have a way of taking one ESA in one contract and billing part of it this way and part of it this way and applying different minimum billing demands, applying some of these other components of the large load tariff. So simply from a practical standpoint, we wouldn't be able to bill an ES or apply the large load tariff to half of an ESA. So a customer in that situation, adding load that would bring them into this tariff, could either accept the large load tariff provisions on their full ESA, or they could separately meter at a new delivery point the new load if they wanted to segregate that and keep their existing load out of the tariff.
Okay, that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. It is now 5 p.m. I will look to do you have redirect, or because if so, we will adjourn at this time and give you a chance to do redirect in the morning. If you do not have redirect, I know we do not have commission staff questions. Do we have any commissioner questions? We will have commissioner questions. Well, why don't we do this? Since there are going to be some commissioner questions, we're going to go ahead and adjourn at this time. We will reconvene at 9:30 a.m.
Just before we adjourn, Presiding Commissioner McKissick.
Yes.
Will Freeman for the public staff. We had discussed holding the public staff's large load panel to recall, subject to recall. We've spoken with counsel for Sigfer, who I believe no longer has questions.
That's correct.
And so I would request, and we can do it in the morning if you prefer, that the public staff's large load panel be released and excused.
Your motion without objection is allowed.
Thank you very much.
And the only thing I'd say for witnesses being excused, being prepared in the morning to procedurally address issues so we can get all of their testimony formally into the record. I believe we authorize the excusing of all witnesses that were requested by DEC except for Walsh, because we do have some commission questions for Walsh, but the other ones we have already allowed. I don't know if you received those orders or not. Yeah. Yeah. Okay, well, hold 1 second. Let me do this because I hear Commissioner Tucker saying he would be willing to waive his commissioner questions in the morning if it releases the panel. Do you have redirect for the panel?
I just have a few redirect questions for the panel.
Okay, Christina, do you have about 5 minutes? Proceed. Go right ahead.
Thank you, Presiding Commissioner McKissick. Just a few. Mr. Duff, do you recall the cross-examination questions asked of you by Google counsel Fennell concerning the large load tariff stakeholder process earlier in our cross-examination?
Yes.
All right. And do you recall that the third amended comprehensive stipulation was filed within this docket on, I want to say July 20th?
Yes.
All right. And do you generally recall that there was a large load tariff section within that stipulation?
Yes.
For just purposes of refreshing everyone's recollection here, bullet A of that filing states July 27th through August 7th, Duke Energy led stakeholder process. Does that sound like I'm reading that correctly?
Yes, you're reading it correctly.
Does that refresh your recollection about
Yes,
whether or not Duke
yes.
Energy is leading this
Yeah,
process?
I guess I confused things. I read that it said for illustrative purposes, but yes, it clearly states that it would be a Duke Energy led stakeholder process.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Duff. Now let's move on to just a few more. Do you recall questions that were asked of you by counsel for NCJC concerning large load customers generally?
Yes.
Okay. Do you have an opinion about the limitation and or the breadth of the North Carolina Utilities Commission's jurisdiction with respect to large load customers or otherwise?
Not at all.
All right. Presiding Commissioner McKissick, I'm just checking to see if I have any others. I think that's all.
Very good. Therefore, since there are no further redirect and there are no commission questions, you're hereby released. We now stand adjourned until 9:30 a.m. when we will restart the hearing. I think I have one more other motion that needs to be made. Go right ahead, sir.
It's not quite yet a motion. I wanted to give presiding commissioner and the commission notice. I will be EDF had their expert witnesses file settlement testimony this morning. I've circulated email to the parties to see if anyone had any cross and if they would object to excusal of those witnesses. No parties have crossed and no parties will object to that excusal. So I intend to request the commission excuse those witnesses as they're both out of state, which will obviously be up to your decision making as to whether they are excused. But I'll be filing that today. And just as a point of notice, it's just 3 pages of settlement testimony, so it's not very long.
Okay, we will look forward to receiving your written motion. We would be inclined to allow that motion without objection. So we don't want to see them travel unnecessarily, incur expense, which they don't need to bear, and you guys don't need to charge them for. Thank you. We now stand adjourned until tomorrow morning at 9:30 a.m. Thank you all. Have a good evening.
Thanks.
Thank you, Chris.